consider all these things combined. And then the other claim is, well, yes, but we've noticed when the atmosphere has more carbon dioxide in it, Earth's temperature is warmer. When the Earth's atmosphere has less carbon dioxide, because there are fluctuations, year by year. And we've noticed that when there's less carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, the Earth's temperature is cooler, and that is true. But causation and correlation are two different things. Correlation does not always imply causation. So the fact that higher temperatures correspond with higher carbon dioxide levels doesn't necessarily mean the carbon dioxide is causing higher temperatures. It could be the reverse. How would that work? Well, again, the ocean contains a great degree of dissolved carbon dioxide because it's got life in it. And it turns out that warm ocean water cannot hold as much carbon dioxide as cold ocean water.
Hi.
And we know
I think my mic wasn't working last time.
A can of soda out on a hot summer day, it goes flat very quick. Hot water can't hold carbon dioxide; it releases it because that's what those bubbles are, carbon dioxide, right? So the same thing happens in the ocean. When the Earth's temperature goes up, the Earth's ocean can't hold as much carbon dioxide, and it releases that carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. So the temperature goes up, lo and behold, the carbon dioxide goes up in the atmosphere. And then the Earth cools by whatever reason, and then the ocean reabsorbs that carbon dioxide because it can. So the Earth cools, and then the carbon dioxide levels go down. So it's not just that carbon dioxide can cause higher temperatures, which it can because it's a greenhouse gas, but the reverse can also happen. So be very careful about concluding that carbon dioxide alone is responsible for, or increased carbon dioxide is responsible by itself for potential increases in Earth's temperature. And then the other factor we have to talk about, the largest factor affecting the Earth's climate has nothing to do with the Earth. It's the sun. The sun puts out a tremendous amount of energy, and that's why we have
Yeah, and the mic not working is unfortunate because I was explaining like a lot of the methods I've been using.
Cycles that it goes through. Some of them we understand pretty well. We have the 22-year magnetic cycle. We understand something of the physics of that. There are still details that need to be worked out, but we understand where the magnetic field flips every 11 years, and you get increased sunspots when that happens. We call that solar maximum. And we just had that. I think it was just last year. I kind of stopped keeping track since I'm not studying that anymore in grad school. But anyway, we had lots of aurora last year as a consequence of that. So the sun goes through these
Now, Bandle Tree is interesting because we could just win off Bandle Tree.
When it has the most sunspots, you might think it's a little darker and put out less energy. It's just the reverse. The rest of the sun overcompensates and puts out more energy, and the Earth's temperatures tend to be a little warmer during those periods. That does happen. We can track that at 11-year cycle, and it does correlate with Earth's temperatures. So that's the main component of
Yeah, Mastery and some other characters, I'm using a Voidborn Carapace, which if you have Deathless, your character that champion will see it himself die, and then regain the Deathless keyword. If you have Guardian Angel as well, you can duplicate your champion. Some champions like Jin can be or synergize more with the Chemtech Duplicator, which also has synergy with Hexcore, which could get you Deathless eventually, but it's better to have some Deathless units so that you can get Deathless in your champion easier, more reliably.
Higher Earth and colder, or just Europe, because most of our instruments were in Europe at the time. But in any case, it makes sense that these long-scale patterns of the sun could affect Earth's temperature, and it's certainly before the invention of human history. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, I am open to the possibility that
you pay. I talk to spirits. These are my rules.
Small way to climate change, but I'm skeptical that we're the main component. I think that's something that needs more research. It's not something that's obvious from the scientific data that we have.
Secular humanists love to think that we humans can do anything.
Hang on, Fuzzball.
Hey.
Up and out.
He's going to tackle the third accusation that pins those of us who are against the wall, and that is if we do something lickety-split, this planet is gonna burn up lickety-split.
Got us covered. Hold up.
If we don't do something, how will this continue in the future, right? Because the narrative...
Here is a system!
drastic. The polar ice caps melt, the coastal areas get flooded, and if it continues the Earth.
Hang on, sir.
I would say they're not. Let's assume, for the sake of argument, that the 1.1 increase in temperature over the last 150 years is real, and that it's caused by industry due to increased carbon dioxide. Again, both of those are. The first one I think it's pretty good. The second one is questionable. But if we continue to increase the atmospheric carbon dioxide, and by the way, there's good evidence the atmospheric carbon dioxide has increased as a result of human.
And yeah, and for LeBlanc, you were trying to get the rally item, which I did successfully. And for Nyla, I used a Guardian Orb Gale Force combo.
The main infrared bands that carbon dioxide absorbs and redirects back to the Earth are very near.
Nyla is by far the easiest if you want to play Nyla. I guess that the fleeting cards get shuffled back into your deck, but you also draw them back, so you end up drawing a lot. And combined with Guardian Orb, you can buff up your units a lot.
Of course, he'd pick the highest cave.
I never.
Would let a little bit through, but let's say it's 90% open. Searching for a stud winner.
Captain's orders. Bullet to the
Pretty
face.
good. I've done my job. I've trapped in that light. I can
You
trap
pay
in if I add
first.
another layer of that. So the original layers are trapping 90%. If I add another layer, it's not going to trap another 90%. That would be
Tricky
80%. That's not right. It's gonna trap 9% of the remaining. So now I'm trapping 99% of the light. I can do a little better by adding another layer. 1% left. I'm basically trapping all that I can.
Let's get it, crew.
Like the carbon dioxide that's in the atmosphere now is basically it's basically blocking 100% of the
Let
infrared
us
in those
see
main
if you
bands.
are worthy.
So what that means is
Welcome.
in the past, if you had
Miles to go.
higher temperature, today if you add more carbon dioxide, the temperature
Form
might be a little
before
bit,
strength.
it's not going to double. It's already near saturation. Now there are some other bands that are not saturated. So people say, well, yeah, they can still and that's true. The point is, it's not a linear response. Doubling the carbon dioxide does not double your temperature. It goes up just a little bit. So that's another reason to think that even if we did nothing, it's not going to be a catastrophe. That's an example of a feedback mechanism, a negative feedback mechanism. You increase the carbon dioxide, it just reaches a new equilibrium condition.
A shadow to cut through the light.
There's another negative feedback mechanism that the Lord has built into the earth, and it's called plants. Plants love carbon dioxide. That is their food. Plants extract carbon dioxide from the air to break that apart, release the oxygen. It's just amazing.
A stumble still leads down the path of
I don't think there was much point in continuing that.
That was once carbon dioxide that the tree extracted and then spit out the oxygen and used the carbon. If I plant it, I'll get another one from the machine. It's just amazing. So that's pretty cool. But plants, it turns out if you increase the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, plants grow faster, they grow more lush. You get increases in vegetation, you get increases in crop yield. And if you have more plants, what do? They remove more carbon dioxide. So you see, all that happens if you increase the carbon dioxide is the plants match it and then reduce that carbon dioxide until it reaches a new equilibrium condition. So it's not something that's going to run away. We're never going to have a condition on Earth like Venus, where Venus has that runaway greenhouse effect. And that's because, first of all, Venus is 30% closer to the sun anyway, which means it's getting twice as much energy from the sun.
If I had 6-star in Ari, I might be more inclined to try Ari. When I recall her, she strikes the enemy nexus.
The Earth. It's basically trapping everything that hits it. That's never going to happen on Earth. We don't have those conditions, and we have these negative feedback mechanisms that will correct automatically. It's pretty hard to break nature. God designed a very robust Earth, and so to my climate alarmists, with respect to the climate, you're just not that important. You're just not. I mean, you think you're going to break it? God has built in these feedback mechanisms. And the other thing to remember too is if you increase the carbon dioxide, we know that that increases plant production. This is called carbon fertilization. It's something that's been well studied. I read an article recently that this has been documented recently that we have experienced in the last few years as a result of increased atmospheric carbon dioxide. We have experienced increased plant growth on Earth, increased crop yields. That's going to provide more food for more people. That's a good thing. And then the other thing to remember too is far more people die from exposure to cold than exposure to heat. So if the Earth's temperature goes up a little bit, what's that going to do? It's going to save more lives.
Talk about good spot. Sorry, Matt. Talk about overconfidence in human abilities. The people who are proponents of climate change would tell you not only are we human beings contributing to the planet burning up, but we also have the ability to make it better. Is that true?
That leads us to criterion number 4, or myth number 4, that we need to do something to fight climate change. Really? Because it seems to me, if the temperature continues to go up a little bit, and it can't go up too much because the carbon dioxide is saturated, if it continues to go up, you're going to get increased crop yield. That's going to help people. You're going to have fewer people die from exposure to cold. That's going to help statistically. Why are we fighting something that is potentially saving lives? Something to think about. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm all for programs that, there are other types of pollution that are very bad for human health. We need to be good stewards of God's earth, but nonetheless, carbon dioxide is not something that is bad. It's something that's very good. It's plant food. It's something that I think these programs that are trying to reduce their carbon footprint are frankly just a waste of money.
Okay, so a couple things. You shared a lot of great information there. I've noticed some folks in the chat asking about Tide Drill. And one thing you mentioned has brought me much comfort and assurance. And Ionia uses a lot of hair products, as you can tell. But you said,
If I kill you, I know fortune, stupid.
we are not ourselves capable of harming with our hair products. Did I hear you correctly?
Well, in terms of chlorofluorocarbons are a greenhouse gas, but they're less than 1%. So I'm just saying you can't break it. You can't break it. Now, there has been talk of chlorofluorocarbons, and there are
This is a real spin to win.
It's not something I've studied
Let
as
us
much,
see
but
you
I know
are
that
worthy.
eventually they can do that. Potentially, one molecule of chlorofluorocarbons
A calm heart.
ozone molecules. But then there's a question of, does it get up into the layer of ozone that
Come on, give it a try.
There is resistance.
Or is it going to grow? You don't hear about that. That doesn't seem to be. But I'm mainly talking in terms of climate. You can't really break it. But that doesn't mean we should be bad stewards. It doesn't mean we shouldn't research. It means that in terms of carbon dioxide emissions, that's not something to worry about.
A clear mind. A calm heart.
But these scientists would say we're the ones responsible, and if we don't do something about it, we're going to face the planet. Us who would say, well, the climate
Voodoo style.
they can go higher or lower, ice caps move forward and backward. No, we affirm that science, but the question is, how do we interpret it? That is the issue. How do we interpret
Can't leave until you win.
same data? And
A
that's
quiet spirit.
the matter is, this is a spiritual issue. Your worldview is made
Louise!
and
To me!
interpreted through that filter, through that lens. So let's just forget about the folks who are proponents and the dire need for us to do something lickety-split and ask ourselves
A calm heart.
understandings do I bring to it that I maybe need to adjust or hold on to, like a preset decision. Start with, hey, what do you know?
A clear mind.
We should see the planet. Why?
A quiet spirit.
Us, human beings,
Searching for some winners.
Captain's orders. Bullet to the
This is outrage.
is flourishing. So now we find ourselves having a little bit of tension. We need to recognize.
Come
it's
now,
gonna
is
take
that
some
all?
things. Sometimes holes need to be dug, cut down wide. For the
edge of my blade!
He is going to purge it.
Blade and body.
Start anew. So there will
Alpha strike!
that
Welcome.
is the future for human flourishing.
One cut of many.
We deny the interpretation of the climate change advocates. Well, the conclusions being that we're the ones who are trashing the place and we're the ones.
Blade and body. Alpha strike. Blade and body. Alpha strike. Blade and body.
Keep trying.
Best you can, but not
Alpha strike. Blade and body.
flourishing.
Our opponent was worthy, but inferior.
Discuss.
Hi, I'm Ken Ham of Answers in Genesis. This lady is scamming in the name of the Lord.
That God moves. Am I talking to anybody? Is something gonna happen for you to the obedience of the prophet that say here, I am pour oil on top of the pillow. I am prophesied over the pillow as you rest your head on the pillow. May your dreams change. May your torment heal. My God!
But let's talk about it here at All Things Theology. Cue my theme music.
All things theology, we chop it up properly. Without an apology, gotta get that theology to God all things theology.
Yeah, it's usually better to try to get one of, or
Yo, Grayson.
yeah, try to reach 40 cards so you don't, you have your own deck instead of Twisted Fate deck.
We have to talk about someone new on this channel.
That one's
we've never
usually
talked
better.
about before, Maddie Notich. Hope I'm pronouncing her name right. Well, I got word of this lady, and boy, there's going to be some striking parallels to David Taylor. It's like the female version of him. Almost, not quite. It's kind of hard to beat David Taylor in craziness, but she's going to be up there
The lesson begins.
in a sermon about a pillow.
I'm actually here.
Yes, you heard me right.
calm
Sermon about a
heart.
pillow. Well, let's see what this is all about.
I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm tired
New
of
recruit reporting in.
The fact that you got a grown woman walking around with a pillow in a sermon is quite strange, but we're about to see what this
clear
is
mind.
going to evolve into. Let's hear. So there you go. Prophetess Maddie Notich, co-pastor.
A quiet spirit.
She got a lot of titles, right? But she's in the Bahamas.
Justice by my hand.
Business right there.
Tired of running.
I'm tired of running.
Tired of running.
I'm tired of being accused.
Tired of being accused.
I'm tired of being rejected.
Tired of being rejected.
I'm tired of can't sleep.
I'm tired of not
I'm
sleeping.
tired of can't find a place.
I'm tired of not finding a place.
I need rest.
I need rest.
A calm heart.
I need rest. So when you look on the pillow, the words say dream and rest.
A clear mind. A quiet spirit.
Boy, ain't no way, boy. What'd you say about that?
So if you're tired of not resting, I mean, is she talking about physically,
Form
spiritually?
before
Because,
strength.
spiritually, we have rest in Christ. So let's be gracious. Let's say she's talking about physically. You have to be lacking physical
clear
rest.
mind.
Don't worry. The pillow says so therefore, you're gonna get.
One
This
cut
is gonna be a
of
scam.
many.
What we're about to see is a grade A scam in the name of Jesus. Unfortunately, using
A
pillows
quiet spirit.
for this nonsense.
Blade
So
and mind.
let's watch
Honed and sharp. Blade and body.
There's a couple of things you could do. Not eat after 6. Maybe take a melatonin. Turn the TV off. Or maybe get a sleep sound machine. I like the sleep machine. They really help me sleep. And just
History
get that
forgets, but the
good
Black
sleep and
Rose
stay out. Your
remembers.
boy be snoring, right? And so, I see how buying this.
Hand to the feet up, friend.
And let's not even get in the quality of it. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but
Wasted effort.
laying on silk, I'm sliding off that mug.
Come now, is
I
that
need
all?
something a little more firm. I need that cotton.
Alpha strike.
Come on, man. Silk just be- You're gonna be off the bed by the end of the night.
Hallelujah.
a pillow. Genesis 28.
Genesis 28.
You only lay there to rest this time. There's a demon that will bring you into a spirit of weariness. There's some evil spirits. Somebody just look at the pillow for the first time like this. I didn't realize all of this was like this.
Alpha strike.
So she's preaching from the pillow. Now we're about to see there's
Blade
actually no
and
pillow
body.
actually being, at least not one of comfort. But you can see that's what is a power to dream again.
Alpha
My
strike.
dream. So apparently, if you've been stopping having dreams, a pillow will cause you to dream again. I mean, it has. I mean, don't you see it has dream on there? It has
Blade
rather
and
that
body.
angel.
Seeing.
We're going to see the text she actually goes to. It's not one you want to use for your pillow, but
Form
maybe some
before
of you already know
strength.
what she's trying to reference. Don't look it up. Don't look it up. I want you to be as shocked and as surprised as I was. That's
My
what-
move.
Alpha strike. Blade and body. Alpha strike. Blade and body.
That's not what it says. Even on her. It's not even what it says.
A
Now,
true master
she has put
is an
that there.
eternal
It
student.
says, taking one of the stones of the place, this is Genesis 28, verse 11, he put it under his head and lay down in that place to sleep. So, I mean, he used it as a pillow, but let's be real. It was a stone. It wasn't a nice, comfortable pillow that you have. It was a stone. So, unless you're selling stones as pillows, this actually has no correlation. And let's just say it was a pillow. What is the parallel that you have that it actually caused him to dream? Because you're going to read it. All it says is he did this and then he dreamed. It didn't say it's the cause of his dreams. I'm explaining this like this is actually I'm trying to be logical. There's no logic for real. So let's keep listening.
And set it up as a pillar. Praise God.
I know you did, girl.
You got to stop doing that. You got to stop
She
doing
set it
that.
up as a pillar. I guess when you say it like that, it kind of sounds like pillow. Like, I mean, a more, what is it, Tyler Perry kind of way. A pillar, right?
Man, upon the top and pour oil on the top of it. Is anybody here tonight? So God say, if you are willing and obedient to obey the instruction, I will shift some things in your life. Am I talking to somebody? If you are willing to look like a fool, to look like praise God, something wrong with all of us.
Yeah, if you buy this, you absolutely are going to look like a fool. You're going to look like a fool. As a matter of fact, the verse she was reading from is verse 18, which says the same thing as verse 11. Took the stone that he put under his head and set it up for a pillow. Or not a pillow. I've never heard pillow pronounced that way. That was pretty cool.
Watch and see what I will do for you. If it's anointed by God, something supernatural.
Something. The wild thing is you're going to pan across this audience a few times, and you're going to see a bunch of these guys with pillows. They've already bought the pillows,
I'm
right? So
actually
they
here.
want to
Not two people say, I'm willing to try it out.
Wait a second. Was that a
Every
bed?
work demands a piece of ourselves.
They got a whole bed back there. Yeah, she said, touch two people and say, I'm willing to try it out. No, we're not.
Get your hands off me!
Don't touch
What do
me,
you
and
see,
I don't
boy?
want to try it out. The fact that they got
To restore this legacy is my
are they still
greatest
on the
honor.
bed too?
A clear mind. Come now, is that all?
Willing to try it out. So I can try everything. Tried it.
In a calm heart.
We're going to hear in a second, but notice she has a look. We're going to check that out in a second just to see how much
I shall
this
meditate
divine
on
pillow,
this.
I mean, if it's going to give you this rest in sweet dreams, this is divine in my book. But why everyone needs deliverance? All because you look back.
Panadol. Aspirin. Amen. Advil. You done try everything. You know what y'all drugs of choice is. Amen, Motrin, ibuprofen.
My goodness.
Come on, somebody. Everything trying to get you to go to sleep, and everything fails.
Close your
You're
eyes.
supposed to drink 1 tablespoon of the NyQuil. You drink it full, and then you don't drink vodka. But you don't drink
New
I see
recruit
the
reporting
problem.
in.
I do not recommend taking that hard pill. It will be a live sweet dream.
I'm
Right? Yeah, I mean,
actually
just
here.
some natural remedies. There's natural remedies out there. Let me tell you what ain't gonna work. This pillow. If you're, having insomnia, buying her pillow is gonna be these things. I would actually probably recommend some of these other drugs.
All right,
although I'm
let's get
being
to work.
facetious here, because this isn't actually
The
going to
best
help.
lies are beautiful.
I mean, you're gonna help her. but
Lever,
not you.
it's spice! Hand to the face! Can't fight on an empty stomach!
Are you certain?
you gotta take 2 amen Advil.
Now that's a bit better. The black rose blooms once more.
Just to get to sleep, only to discover at 1:05 a.m. you wide awake, bright-eyed, bushy tail.
What was that?
A perfect puppet.
Oh man, this lady is out of here. I mean, she's like the female Jamal Bryant, right?
What do you see, boy?
Look at those big eyes.
What a treat.
I want to give you a strategy.
There.
Sometimes God will use
Good.
conventional methods to bring you into a supernatural way. This year, 2020 and beyond, you have to be people for supernatural things to happen.
Feel the seed up, friend!
To be caught up in your flesh, and in yourself.
So
Believe in
obvious.
silly people who don't understand the cause of your praise.
Now,
Silly people, huh?
silly people who don't understand. While she's holding her pillow, trying to get them to buy it for lack of sleep.
Classic
Talk about
misdirection.
The pot calling kettle black. This is a look. If you
New
struggle
recruit
with sleep,
reporting
this-
in.
again,
Take your place.
other ways
We've much
do
to
it.
do.
I guarantee.
Batter him! Can't fight on an empty stomach!
Who even
Are you
understand
certain?
the supernatural ways that God moves.
Oh yeah, that's what I want. Sleep isn't supernatural. It's very natural. You calling something natural supernatural doesn't mean it's now supernatural. It's like calling eating
A
supernatural.
perfect puppet.
Go eat. That's very natural. So she's even blending and mixing categories that aren't actually what she's saying.
Am I talking about? Is something going to happen to you to the obedience of the prophet that say, here, I am pour oil on top of the pillow. I am pouring over the pillow as you
Smoke and mirrors.
on the pillow. May your dreams change.
What is
Surprised
wrong
to
with
see
this
me.
lady? She's literally, I guess, trying to
You chose
get in
poorly.
the act of sleeping. I don't know.
May your torment be upon
Look at all those pillows.
Be seen. New recruit reporting in.
Take your place. We've much to do. The lesson begins.
I'll write my own story.
something that is shift. You have
Classic
tried everything
misdirection.
else to shift, and things got worse. Come on, somebody. You have tried everything. Is it the pillow or is it the pillow?
It's time.
The problem is it the pillow or is it the demon spirit that is in there and
That escalated quickly.
A clear mind.
to try to sleep and you still
Come on.
so in order what you got to do is attack.
Hand to the face! Eat up, friend!
So essentially, trying to argue, well, if you can't sleep, it's probably because you have a demon. I
Wasted
recommend
effort.
trying less.
So
you
obvious.
know, not going to the wildest conclusion first.
Good,
I mean,
good.
First of all, if you're a Christian, you don't have a demon. Let's
Show me your
start
skill.
with that. No, know. It's probably something physical happening. Maybe you're stressed.
Yeah, I'm gonna disagree with that idea.
The position you're
I think it's possible. You see passages in the Bible.
You know,
indicate.
You have to go to the extreme of a demon.
If he's trying to rob you of your sleep and of your rest, God gave Jacob. He didn't have no promises.
New recruit reporting in.
Take your place. We've much to do. Discipline or death.
Anybody. Siri was not there.
Are you
Google
certain?
was not there. All God showed him was a rock. Oh,
Yeah, a rock, not a pillow. Those are two different things. Now you can use a rock as a pillow, but it won't be very comfortable. You know, nor did it say the rock, the pillar, or the demon. No, they didn't say
Blade and line, honed and sharp. A quiet spirit. Alpha strike.
amen. And now, prepare to sleep on the rock. He called the
A
rock.
perfect puppet.
Genesis 28. It's Noah. And the Bible said that when Jacob
Blade and body. Alpha strike.
that was shot and closed over his head.
Blade and body. Alpha strike.
Supernatural wrath and things that he never saw before. He
One
began to
cut
see
of many.
dreams upon dreams, visions upon
Blade and body. Good dog. Alpha strike. Blade and body.
in the name of Jesus Christ.
Another rose for the garden.
Shall come to you. Not only shall they come to you, but with the dreams that heaven will open, and you will have angelic visitation from the Spirit.
I receive in Jesus.
Okay, silly. I mean, so because we have this pillow, we're now going to have dreams and visions. Well, I have dreams already. But more than that, you're going to have angels visiting you. I don't know if I actually want that, but okay.
I receive it in Jesus' name. In the name of Jesus.
This is terrible.
Wave your pillows. Wave your pillows. All over the pillow, wave your pillows.
Oh my goodness.
All over the pillow, wave your pillows.
Talk about a slumber party. Oh, you got some of that too, man. We got you for that too.
I should've bought a Hyundai, but I bought a Kia. I should've bought a Hyundai, but I bought a Kia. I should've bought a Hyundai, but I bought a Kia. I should've bought a Hyundai, but I bought a Kia.
Should've bought a Hyundai, but I bought a pillow.
He starts to dream. As he is dreaming, while he is there, he dreams that the heaven is open, that a ladder came down from heaven, touched the ground. Representing between God and you. Are you ready? There is a point of contact. But the ladder is symbolizing a place of divine connection. It was showing him that God was in touch with where he was.
I don't think the pillow is the point of the story. I mean, you don't have to be a Bible scholar to come to that conclusion as well. But you
Time
guys
to
remember
make
who
an
else had a big,
appearance.
Mama told me to
Also
stay
did
away
the
from
kind for
strangers.
you girls. I know you love pink, you know. So I know the women want the pink, and this is so anointed. God will start appearing to you through dreams.
Dolly packs
If you
punch.
will sleep on these anointed pillowcases. So the boys' kind is blue, and the girls' kind is pink. If you study Abraham Lincoln, you all know our president Abraham Lincoln lost his life because he didn't understand his dream.
But I did say I was going to show you her website where you can actually buy a pillow just in
Smoke
case
and
you're
mirrors.
interested. Let's actually check this out together. Let's see what we can stumble
Okay,
upon
Dolly,
here.
just like you
Oh
showed
my
me.
goodness, you guys are going to be bewildered. Look at this. This Injeti oil of favor. I mean, she has a lot of stuff you can just buy, which, hey, look, you got prayer socks. Drop your socks off. You got the oil of victory. Well, anyway, let's look at this pillow. I mean, okay, look. So Raven prayer tools. My goodness, she is selling bottled water for $30. 30 to 100. She can sell water to an Eskimo. I mean, I think that phrase was made about her. I mean, I think a lot of this stuff is ridiculous. I mean, you have anointed prayer altar for $250, prayer shawls $145 to $250. Oh, look, let's look at our pillow. Oh, these are pretty cheap. $35 to $55. Wouldn't this go nice on your couch?
Practice time.
You go nice on your couch. You get the white one. We got the pink one for the ladies.
Let us see if you are worthy.
Even something for the kids. Ain't that nice? Yeah, that's real nice. You got the deluxe set right there.
A clear mind.
Customer reviews, just one. 5 out of 5. Let's see what they say. Oh yeah, I have my pillow so much.
What a treat.
So much it is beautifully made. Okay, Ask Google.
The black rose
like
bloom.
Oh yeah, there's the pillow. Let's see. Yeah. The anointed prayer
No
pillow
one is beyond
used
my
as a
reach.
prayer for
No
the
one.
minds of the travail on the altar in the presence of God. So I guess only bring this out during tough times. Who knows?
Classic misdirection.
Bring this bad boy out. You could literally cause the Lord to. I don't know. I mean, this is just silly, right? I mean, no one should buy this. This is just a sin in the name of the Lord. Unfortunately, don't buy it. If you bought it, I mean, just use it as a regular pillow.
A quiet spirit.
It's unfortunate there's so many people who try to sell these things as like this is going to really help you go to the next level. Or look, if you just buy a shirt, you just bought a shirt. You just want to support the channel, right? But it's nothing special. It's not going to help you in your walk. You just bought oil.
A calm heart.
Right? Avoid anybody telling you down on their product, right? And so hope you guys enjoy this.
It will all be over soon.
Oh, grace and peace. Thank you
Useless
for watching
pawn.
another episode of All Things Theology. If you enjoyed what you heard today, go on.
If you're a man in Japan, never do this. Here's why. Public bathhouses are super common in Japan, and people usually go there to relax. But some quietly turned into unofficial gay cruising spots, making regular customers uncomfortable. Enter Kosuke Atari, the singer behind a bunch of anime songs. He walked into a bathhouse late at night, saw a guy asleep, and decided to go down on him. The guy suddenly woke up, freaked out, and slammed Atari off him before calling the cops. Surprisingly, Atari got released without any charges. So I'm guessing he paid off the victim. And because this anime is super famous, this story exploded
No sexual
online, and
assault's
people
bad.
started speculating. Maybe the victim got assaulted because he wore his locker key around his ankle. Apparently in Japan, this is an unofficial signal that you're gay and open to being approached by other men. After this incident, straight guys started warning each other, even sharing horror stories about getting groped at bathhouses, just for making this mistake without knowing what it meant. And this is why
line, honed and sharp.
I think Game of Thrones is the most popular show ever. Maybe not from a purely hours watch perspective,
was
because
inevitable.
shows like Star Trek and The Simpsons have been around longer than many of you have been alive. But at its peak, there's never been a show that was as popular or obsessed over more than Game of Thrones. For the past 15 years or so, we all had a really great time theorizing about every mystery, examining every character, and arguing over every little detail of this story. But if you notice, Season 8 was so universally hated that no one even tried to make a theory that could make sense of the ending. As soon as the last episode was over, we all just collectively suppressed the thought of it like a bad memory from our childhood. And it felt like everyone from the die-hard book readers to the casual show watchers all just accepted that there was no possible way this ending could ever be explained. Even I had to ask myself, is this really so bad that I can't make a theory about it? Is this really beyond the limits of my imagination?
What? Man, hell no!
So I decided to watch Season 8 again, except this time I watched it like it was something I had never seen before, and the only thing I knew about it was that everyone loved it and it was universally considered the perfect ending. I had to completely change my perspective and watch it with a more objective frame of mind, and I had to consider the possibility that maybe my expectations were the only thing stopping me from recognizing how genius it really was. I think one of the reasons we all hated the ending so much is because we forgot why we fell in love with this show in the first place. This show ruined your perception on how a story is told, and it was forced to give answers and resolutions to things that were never meant to have explanations in the first place. The Game of Thrones story was never meant to end like other stories, and it was never meant to have a resolution for every character and every plot line. And because many of the details and subplots were created primarily for world building, sometimes plots get forgotten and characters go missing or die, and it doesn't mean anything to the overall story. From the very beginning, this show told you it was going to break your heart. It promised your feelings would be hurt and your expectations subverted, but week after week and season after season, you all kept coming back.
If you think this has a happy ending, you haven't been paying attention.
No one wanted Ned to die. No one imagined Robb would be betrayed.
To restore this legacy is my greatest
but they all did. And if the seed of disappointment hadn't been planted early on, we would have never allowed ourselves to fall so deeply in love with the story in the first place. Even after 7 seasons of seeing so many characters get killed without any closure to their story, everyone still expected the series to end with a clean resolution where everything was tied up neatly like a happily ever after fairy tale. We fell in love with this show because no one ever gets a happy ending. And even characters that seem intelligent and in control ended up dying because they made easily avoidable stupid mistakes. Ned should have never told Cersei he knew Jaime was the father of her kids. Oberyn should have killed the mountain when he had the chance. Robb was stupid for marrying Talisa and not expecting Walder Frey to be mad about it. And Littlefinger killed Lysa Arryn in front of Sansa without having a backup plan, because if she didn't decide to open up the last minute, he would have been dead. None of these decisions were made in season 8, and they're all things that happen in the books too. But because our emotions started to influence our expectations, we treated the decisions everyone made in season 8 like they were unforgivable.
Unforgivable?
Now I'm fully aware of why everyone hated this season, because when I first watched it, I hated it too. But I need you to take a step back and recognize that D&D are actually good writers.
I will not hear it!
Everyone thinks the earlier seasons were good because they just copied everything from the books, but almost all of the most memorable scenes from the show were 100% made up by them. Robert and Cersei talking about their marriage, not in the books. Littlefinger's chaos as a ladder speech, not in the books.
I whisper truth into lies.
Catelyn Stark's motherless child confession about her true feelings for Jon, not in the books. Davos and Shireen's relationship, Grey Worm and Missandei's relationship, and Tyrion and Podrick's relationship, they're all not in the books.
Close your
Even
eyes.
the introduction of Tywin and Jaime, his scenes with Arya
Bag 'em
and
and tack.
and honestly almost every Tywin scene is not in the books. Now I can go on and on all day with really great scenes, moments, and quotes that aren't in the books. But the point I'm trying to make is that D&D are actually good writers, but they have the impossible task of trying to finish a story that George himself can't seem to finish, because it's nearly impossible to give a story like this a traditional conclusion. I think the only way to end a story like this is by leaving it with a cliffhanger or a surprise revelation that gives everyone something to discuss and feel like.
Blade and line, honed and sharp.
The twist would have changed the way a lot of you think. And not only would it have given us something to talk about, it would have removed the need to give it a clean conclusion. Now the biggest challenge with this theory is asking you to remove your feelings from the idea and just focus on the myriad details of the story. Because unfortunately, no matter what I say, I can't fix how the ending and
Blade and body.
Seeing
so if you're
double.
willing to put your emotions aside, I think this idea can not only change the way you see the ending, but maybe, just maybe, it could expose that the details of the final season that everyone hated might have been so genius that we all just misunderstood.
Blade and body.
Now, if we're being honest, the first 2 episodes of season 8 were just as good as any other episodes of any other season. And it wasn't until episode 3, specifically when the Night King
One
died,
cut
that everyone
of
started to
many.
complain about how bad it was. For 7 straight seasons, the Night King was built
Blade
as
and
an
body.
unstoppable force that was impossible to defeat, only for him to die like a normal
Alpha
human
strike.
from a normal injury that was
Blade
pretty
and body.
anticlimactic.
Alpha
That
strike.
really wasn't the worst part about it.
Blade
We
and
really
body.
didn't care that he died so
Blade
easily.
on.
We were
Taking
disappointed
you
that we
in.
never got a chance to learn what he was specifically trying to accomplish.
Alpha strike.
The only person that's tried to explain what he wants is Bran. But I'm 100% certain this isn't what he's trying to do.
What does he want?
Another rose for the
He wants to
garden.
erase this world, and I am its enemy.
Now, the reason I say I'm so certain this isn't what he's trying to do is because the three-eyed raven was living in a giant werewood tree north of the wall for like 100 years. So if killing him was the goal, he could have easily figured out a way to do that without having to go through all of this trouble. And if killing Bran was his new goal, I think he would have put more effort into the chase after he attacked the werewood cave. He would have used all of his powers and sent his entire army after him, and he would have never let him get south of the wall. I think somewhere along the way we all got lost in the fantasy side of the story, and we forgot that Game of Thrones was always a political drama that focused on the pursuit of power, and not dragons, magical prophecies, and shadow assassins. Giants, fire witches, and supernatural trees were always secondary to the political maneuvering, and because we all forgot this fact, by the time Season 8 started, we all assumed that the Night King was just an evil ice demon that couldn't possibly have political ambitions of his own. What if everything that happened in Season 8 was all part of the Night King's plan? And not only was he working with the Children of the Forest the entire time, but he was also controlling Uncle Benjen, Jon Snow, and Bran Stark too.
How? Hold on, bro. How? How you? I'm saying how? Like this.
What if he never actually wanted to kill Bran? And the reason he came to Winterfell is because he wanted to get killed as part of a much bigger plan that no one would ever suspect.
You have a very suspicious mind.
Everything we know about the Night King comes from the Children of the Forest, but we never consider that a group of magical elves that we don't know anything about could be secretly using the Night King to kill everyone, like they originally planned on doing when they first created him. They tell Bran that they created him as a weapon to fight against the First Men, but they never explain why they didn't have a way to stop him, why he decided to attack Westeros now, or why he wants to kill the Children of the Forest. They openly admit that they created a telepathic ice demon to kill
Restore
everyone
this
in
legacy
Westeros,
is my
but for
greatest
some
honor.
reason, we're supposed to believe that they really want to save everybody from him. I don't think they ever wanted to stop him,
mind if I
and they never wanted to save Westeros.
clear mind.
Just think about this. If the children were really afraid of the Night King, and they really wanted him dead, why didn't they tell Bran that Dragonglass and Valyrian Steel could kill him? And why didn't they tell him what they were specifically training him to do? They told Bran that he was going to be the new three-eyed raven. But if the old one couldn't stop the Night King, why would he be able to do it? They wanted Bran to believe that he was being trained to become the new three-eyed raven. But what they didn't tell him was that he was actually being trained to become the new Night King.
Tina, get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out. Get the fuck out of here.
The children needed someone who could handle the Night King's power because they planned on using Bran as a new body for him to transfer his consciousness into. So even though it might have seemed like Bloodraven was showing Bran a bunch of
for a
irrelevant
taste of
events from the
tomorrow.
past, he was really just testing him to see if he was strong enough to handle the transformation process. Vera was right when she said,
You died in that. I shall
because
meditate
the
on
person we
this.
see escaping the cave was no longer Bran Stark. It was his body being controlled by the Night King. If the Night King touching Bran was the only way to get past their security system, why didn't Bloodraven tell him to be careful when he was inside the werewolves? And why didn't he tell him to never let the Night King touch him, no matter what? There was no reason why Bran should have even been alone in this scenario anyway, especially because Bloodraven was plugged into the trees and watching everything he was doing.
He touched you.
So he knew Bran was alone in the werewolves and saw him approaching the Night King, but he didn't try and stop it from happening. The touch wasn't the reason he was able to go inside the cave. The touch is what allowed him to go inside of Bran's mind. There was
That
really no
fated
reason
day
for the
has
Night King
never
to come
far
inside of
from
the
my
cave
thoughts.
anyway because he already had access to Bran and the children anytime they plugged into the tree. You have to remember that the children are semi-human and share a collective consciousness that exists inside of the tree. So because their consciousness goes inside of the werewood world after they die, a physical death isn't the end of their existence like everyone thinks it is. So when we see the children sacrificing themselves so Bran can escape, what we're really seeing is a carefully planned deception meant to make Mira believe that the children are the good guys and are fighting to save Bran from the Night King.
Theatricality and deception. Powerful agents for the uninitiated.
Pay attention to how Leaf only throws her grenades at the disposable zombies and not the White Walkers. This is all a show that's supposed to look like they're trying to kill you, but in reality,
It's all part of the plan.
but it doesn't stop there. There's no way Bran would have escaped this situation if the Night King really wanted to catch him. And that's why, even though he had thousands of zombies at his disposal, He only sent about a dozen of them to chase Bran after he left the cave. And just when they finally caught up to him,
Places to
Uncle
go,
Benjen shows up out of
people to
nowhere
meet.
and claims that he's been working with the children of the forest
Wanna
since he went
arm
missing in
wrestle?
season 1.
Go on,
Doesn't this entire
shake my
situation
hand.
seem a little
Show
too
me your
convenient?
skill.
Doesn't it seem like it was set up perfectly so they can escape? Now, I know you probably think this is just lazy writing or 3-inch thick Valyrian steel plot armor, but what I see is one step in a master plan that was so complicated that no one would ever consider it was possible. We haven't seen Uncle Benjen since season 1, so it's a really big coincidence that he would have been just sitting around in the snow waiting for a moment like this. He says the White Walkers stabbed him and left him to die, and the children saved him by sticking dragonglass in his heart, just like they did with the Night King. But there's a few things about the
I
story
whisper
that don't make any
truth
sense.
into
First of all,
lies.
why would the White Walkers leave him to die instead of just killing him and turning him into a zombie? Secondly, why were the children close enough to rescue him, and why would they care? And finally, why would they risk using the same Night King creation method on a random guy? Now, it's possible he was able to get away after being stabbed, and it's possible that the children saved him because he's a Stark and that's important for some reason. But there's a small detail in the story that proves he's lying about everything.
The children found stop the walkers' magic from taking hold. How? The same way they made the walkers in the first place. You saw it yourself. You saw it yourself. You saw it yourself.
How does he know Bran saw the Night King being created?
You know you're fucked up, right?
There's really no reason why the children would tell him about everything Bran saw during his training. And if Benjen was plugged into the werewolves, why wouldn't he have tried to communicate with Bran and tell him that he wasn't dead? At this point, Bran is already being controlled by the Night King. So the only reason he would say this is because he wants Mira to know about him. Mira is important because she can validate everything Bran says about the children, the Night King, and the Werewood Cave. And because she doesn't have anything to gain by lying, it guarantees that no one at Winterfell will be suspicious about what Bran is really there to do. There were a lot of confusing things that happened in Season 8, but by far, the most puzzling thing was Bran during the battle at Winterfell. Now, we all know he couldn't physically fight in the battle, and he couldn't compete with the Night King's power, but there was absolutely no reason for him to sit outside in the open like this doing nothing. But what if we're looking at this entire scene the wrong way? What if Bran was sitting there because this is where the Night King wants him, and this specific werewolf tree is special because it's necessary for the transfer process to work? If a warg dies near another living thing, it can permanently transfer its consciousness into that thing and take control of their mind. Now, most wargs are only strong enough to take over an animal, like the eagle after Jon kills a whale, but if they're powerful enough, they can take over a human. We don't see this character in the show, but in the prologue of A Dance with Dragons, a wildling named Varamir Sixskins, who got that name because he can warg into 6 different animals at once, is almost able to take over a girl's mind after he dies.
That's all?
We've never seen another warg as powerful as the Night King, but we know that he can effortlessly control thousands of different things at once. And because he's hundreds of
Blade
times more
and
powerful
mine,
than anyone else
honed
we've
and
seen,
sharp.
it's safe to assume that if he died near another person, he would easily be able to force himself inside of their mind. The Night King had already taken control of Bran the same way Bran controlled Hodor. But dying in front of the werewolf, similar to the way he was created, is the only way he would be able to fully transfer his consciousness into Bran and still keep all of his powers. He came to Winterfell because he planned on getting killed so he can escape his body, but he had to set up a scenario where everyone believed that he actually died. The only person that would have known this was possible was Bran, but because he was already in control of him, no one would be able to tell anyone that this is what he was really trying to accomplish.
Always keep your foes confused. If they don't know who you are or what you want, they can't know what you plan to do next.
This is why Bran gave Arya the dagger, and why the Night King unnecessarily put himself in harm's way when he could have easily just let his army kill everyone at Winterfell while he was chilling at the Dreadfort miles away from any danger. The Night King was in control of this battle the entire time, and he knew that Arya was the only one that could get close enough to him to complete this step in his plan without anyone being suspicious. This is why the Whites are creeping around the library like old school Romero zombies and not really trying to catch her. He never wanted to kill Arya. He was just using the zombies to keep her busy until he got into the right position in front of Bran and in front of the werewood tree. When you really stop and think about what the Night King can do and how powerful he is, it makes so many of the strange things that happened this season make so much more sense. The Night King had to put on a big show at Winterfell so everyone believed that he actually died, but he also needed soldiers so he can take over King's Landing, and this is why so many Dothraki and Unsullied are still alive after it's over. We all know that he can control thousands of dead bodies at once, and because we never actually see what happens to the Dothraki in the dark, I think he carefully killed them so they didn't have any obvious wounds, and then resurrected them like nothing ever happened. There was so much chaos during that battle that no one was keeping a head count on how many people died. So when the battle was over, and most of them were still alive, no one thought it was possible for the Night King to be controlling them because everyone thought he was dead. Everything in Winterfell went according to plan. He was able to war against many of the Unsullied in Dothraki, he was able to complete the permanent takeover of Bran's body, and he was able to use Jon to fully gain Dany's trust so she would help him take over King's Landing. From the very beginning, Jon was set up as the obvious savior of Westeros, and his entire story was the classic hero's journey where everything was laid out perfectly for him to kill the Night King, save the world, and take his rightful place on the Iron Throne. But because none of those things happened, the question has to be asked, what was the point of him coming back to life? The show wanted him to come back because he was one of the most popular characters, but from a story perspective, who resurrected him and why did they do it? The only reason the Lord of Light would have brought him back is so he could kill the Night King, but because Jon wasn't the one that killed him, and he really didn't do anything important in that battle, I think the Night King is actually the one who brought him back. Just think about this. Every power that Thoros and Melisandre have are also powers that the Night King has too. So it's possible everything they think the Lord of Light is doing is really just him. He can resurrect the dead, he can manipulate the elements, he can communicate through visions and dreams, and because he's a green seer, he can see into the future as well. The only reason the Whites can move is because the Night King is telepathically controlling them. So the fact that one of them is able to stay animated in King's Landing so far away from him proves that he's powerful enough to resurrect Beric thousands of miles away. So because we know he can use his powers that far away, he could have easily sent Melisandre visions in the fire, the same way that children were able to send Bran visions in his dreams. The Night King was controlling Jon's body the entire time, and he only needed it to look like he was fighting against him, but in reality, he wasn't needed for this part of the plan, so he just kept him on the sidelines. This is why Jon spent most of the battle running around doing nothing. This is why the Ice Dragon didn't seem like it was really trying to kill him. This is why the Night King didn't kill him when he had the chance, and this is why Jon is constantly telling everyone he doesn't want to be king.
I told you I don't want it. I never wanted a crown.
Even though he was already the Commander, King of the North, and the de facto King of the Valley. Now I know you're probably asking, if Jon was already accepted by everyone as the obvious choice for king, why didn't the Night King just transfer himself into Jon's body instead of an unknown kid in a wheelchair? Even though Jon would have been the perfect person to switch bodies with, he needed someone with Bran's ability so he can still keep all of his powers. Plus, he needed someone that was alive because he can't transfer himself into a dead body. He also needed Jon to overthrow King's Landing and kill Daenerys, and he knew that he could potentially die in the process if he transferred himself into him at Winterfell. Jon could have been killed in the King's Landing battle, executed by the Unsullied, or burned to death by Drogon. So even if he did have all of Bran's abilities, he would have still been at a much bigger risk of dying than Bran ever was. The only person that wants to sit on the Iron Throne is Dany, and the only other person that has a legitimate claim is Jon. So he resurrected Jon to kill Dany, and then made him go live beyond the wall with the Wildlings, so he could use his telepathic powers and manipulation to sit on the Iron Throne. Littlefinger was right when he said, "Chaos is a ladder." So while everyone was distracted by the chaos of dragons, Dothraki, and ice zombies, the Night King was secretly executing a plan to take over Westeros. But not only did everyone not be mad about it, they'd be happy.
Yesterday, from the time of my recording this, Robert Prevost was elected as the Pope, and he chose the name Pope Leo XIV. This is number 267, 267 Pope, according to the official list at yesterday. And he's the first American Pope, which is interesting. I didn't have anything to say, honestly. I didn't know anything about the guy. So people ask me my opinion, I'm like, always just happy to say, I don't have everything. But I'm just fascinated by it, so I've been learning a lot about him, and I wanted to share 3 reflections in a lighthearted way and all in a spirit of appreciation for various positions of his. Those of you who watch my channel know that I spend a lot of time defending Protestant beliefs. I'm very happy to do that. I believe in that. But I also value having positive relationships across differences and appreciating where we do have common ground. And so when there's a significant turning point in the life of another church, it's appropriate to hit the
Each strike spells a new legacy!
And just be a human being, don't be a jerk, be tactful, be kind. And so for example, when a pope dies, we can express our condolences. When a new pope is elected, we can pray that God would direct that person
Life
unto
is
righteousness,
too short
unto
for
truth,
fear.
unto wisdom. Hopefully that, I regret that needs to be said, but it does, because a lot of people seize upon the moment and they're just very confused. But the reality is all of us benefit from having a good pope rather than a bad pope, because
even if you're not Catholic, we should all want a good pope, because the pope is a major global figure. He's the spiritual leader of almost 1.5 billion people. That's 18% of the world's population. 1 out of 5 people in the entire world. So we all want to have a pope who is a good person, and thankfully, Pope Leo XIV, from my initial impressions, I didn't know anything about him 36 hours ago, but I was learning, so maybe this is all just a provisional first impression from researching the last 24 hours. But I'm encouraged. About this man, especially just in terms of what he has to offer to the world right now in its current state. It's like 3 things. The one is his social positions reflect
my lesson is
Christian values, in my opinion. So, for example, he's pro-life. This is encouraging. You can see this in his ministry in Peru. A lot of his adult life has been spent in Peru. But also, more recently, in 2015, I'll put up a picture here from a tweet of his at the March for Life in Chicago, where he's saying, "Let's defend human life at all times." In a 2019 homily, he says, "We cannot build a just society if we discard the weakest, whether the child in the womb or the elderly in their frailty, for they are both gifts from God." In 2023, he said, "The church must walk with all people, especially the most vulnerable, ensuring their dignity is upheld from the womb to the end of life, as this is the heart of Christ's mission." This is what I appreciate here is not only the pro-life advocacy, but the sensitivity to all of life. Sometimes people get honed in just on that one issue, and we forget the value of all human life. He also holds to traditional views regarding gender and sexuality. You can see that throughout his ministry in Peru. Back in 2015 or 2016, somewhere around there, he says the promotion of gender ideology is confusing because it seeks to create genders that don't exist. So this is not someone who is radically progressive. On the other hand, he is also willing to criticize some of the extremes and eccentricities of the far right and some of the things that are happening, especially
don't know much, do you?
Trump. He speaks out on behalf of immigrants, for example. Even in the way you saw him unpacking his thoughts about protecting the unborn, you get a little bit of this flavor. He speaks out against the sin of racism. He's outspoken about the need to address climate change, which I think is encouraging. If you know anything about me, you probably heard about, I care about that issue. It's only in the I keep saying this, I keep saying it over the years, hopefully we'll make progress. It is only in the United States and a few other places that issue is perceived, is coded so much as though it were this liberal issue. It is not liberal to care about climate change. It's just a basic issue that's completely legitimate to care about. Not to get into that here. The point is for now just a statement of appreciation for his social views. He's neither radically progressive nor radically traditionalist. Or, you can even just say, I actually didn't like framing it like that, because I would regard it as just basically to impose where conservative values themselves are being undermined and what goes under the name of conservatism. All to say, I just think there's what I see in those positions and those statements I just read is a historic Christian impulse. The second thing that I like about Pope Leo XIV is he has academic judgment. I always think it's interesting when you get a theologian as the Pope. Not to say you have to have that, by the way. I think someone can be a great spiritual leader even if they're not really called to an academic expression of the idea. But it's fascinating when a Pope is, like more recently Pope Benedict. But in addition to getting a master's degree at the Catholic Theological Union in Chicago, he got an MDiv. He then went on to Rome for advanced studies in canon law, and that included a doctorate. And you can read, I was reading a lot of academic writings. A lot of them are about the Order of St. Augustine, of which he is a member. So that flavors a little bit of just who he is and how he functions, and it's interesting. And it plays into the third thing that I want to highlight, which actually kind of comes out of his first two, which he already somewhat explicitly, and that is Pope Leo XIV strikes me as something of a centrist or moderate. I mean, first of all, he is described in those categories in terms of his position, but even in terms of his
strike spells a new legacy.
He's someone who is, I mean these things as positives, cautious,
blade and body,
potentially interactions with others, and different times call for different styles of leadership. I happen to feel that in the radicalization and instability of the world world right now, this is tremendously good. Centrist influences are actually helpful in the times in which we live. And to that end, let me just sort of sign off this very brief video, just throwing out a few categories on the table for people to pick up. But I want to sign off by reading something that Pope Leo XIV said about social media. Is he the first pope who's really used social media? I'm not sure, but I haven't really looked into that to verify that. I mean, himself personally throughout his life. But he, in 2 years ago, 2023, he was interviewed, and he talked about social media, and he said something that resonates with me, because as someone, I think about social media every day, both the pros and the cons, because it's a part of my life now, and I see opportunities, but man, there are dangers, and it is really risky. What he says here, I think, is something we can all think about. He says, social media can be an important tool to communicate the gospel message reaching millions of people. We must prepare ourselves to use social media well. I am afraid that sometimes this preparation is lacking. At the same time, the world today, which is constantly changing, presents situations where we really have to think several times before speaking or before writing a message on Twitter in order to answer or even to ask questions in a public forum in full view of everyone. Sometimes there is a risk of fueling divisions and controversy. There is a great responsibility to use social networks communication correctly, because it is an opportunity, but it is also a risk, and it can do damage.
This is a real spin to win.
That is why one must be very prudent. Amen to that. So it's something for us all to keep thinking about as we're on social media. Prayers for Pope Leo. God bless you all. Thanks for watching.
Hey, Charlie.
Yes, sir.
My name is Patrick. I'm a student here. My question to you is, why are you so hypocritical in the way that you look at Trump and Biden? As far as the economy goes, every time he announces a tariff, economy tanks. We saw that twice in March, and then in the most recent one where he announced like the largest or the most tariff percentage.
The stock market or the economy?
Everything in general, just like the way
the stock market's backed up to even before the tariff announcement.
Yeah, but that's because he took away the tariffs. He took it away because all of his billionaire buddies, more or less. It's true. Elon Musk isn't really on TV anymore because he's Australians and Tesla.
He was just in the cabinet meeting last week wearing multiple hats. Did you see that? Did I wear many hats?
No, I don't watch it.
Then why do you say he's not on TV? You said you know what he's on TV. Why you said he's not on TV anymore? You say don't watch TV.
I just see him everywhere. I used to see him everywhere, and then as soon as the tariffs went into effect, he lost billions in Tesla stock. He stopped showing up. Pete Hegseth is a moron.
Hold on, let's pause with that. Is military recruitment up?
Not sure.
Yes, it is. Is military morale up?
Not sure.
Are military war games up?
Not sure.
Yes. Are military procurement going in the right direction? Wait, so hold on a second. You call Pete Hegseth a moron, yet more people want to join our military, and they're happier fighting in our military with Pete Hegseth as head of Secretary of Defense. So that's really weird. Why is he a moron exactly?
Well, because
you know he served in the U.S. military alongside.
I appreciate his service.
Is that how you talk to veterans? You call them morons?
No, I don't. And don't say that I do.
That's what. No, but why is he a moron?
Because it's a two-signal chat.
He did not have any reporters.
It doesn't matter. Why is he having
Signal's an approved communication platform done by the Biden administration. Actually, do you use Signal? Do you use WhatsApp? Do you use Telegram?
No, I don't.
Oh, you don't really? You don't use any messaging apps?
I just use iMessage.
Okay, that's a messaging app.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's also a secure one as well. But what is the contention here? You said the hypocrisy. So let me now try to get your. Which person was more capable of talking to the media, Joe Biden or Donald Trump?
Neither. Joe Biden. That's my biggest gripe.
Did you have full faith in Joe Biden's ability to complete sentences?
To a certain extent, I did. And then I didn't. After I realized maybe he is too old to be in office, just like Donald Trump, which he will be the oldest president
age
in
has
office.
Nothing to do with it. Brain acuity
now
has
it
a lot.
doesn't. It doesn't now. But when Biden was in office,
no, we never criticized Biden's age. We criticized his lack of knowing where he is, and his dementia.
Well, then that's my point. You talk about Biden when he was dementiated, like you said.
Yes, and okay. Donald Trump has done multiple hours of freewheeling press conferences a week. Joe Biden wouldn't talk to the press for weeks on end. So, But you say that the hypocrisy, I'm very interested. What do you mean by that? Because actually, Joe Biden told us the southern border was an impossible problem to solve. He needed Congress to solve. The southern border is so secure right now, we have a 99.99% reduction in all border crossings. And so
that's just a fear factor.
It's a fact, actually.
Well, because when Trump is saying that he's going to deport every single immigrant, it makes immigrants not want to come in.
Good for Trump. That's amazing. And by the way, don't call them immigrants. They're line cutters and border jumpers. Immigrants are people that wait in line and fill out the forms and come here correctly. Don't conflate the two. Don't conflate the two. When you border jump, you're not an immigrant. You're something completely different.
A criminal? Is that what you're going to say?
You're not an equivalent.
An equivalent of what? A human?
One is a criminal. One is a rule follower. One is a lawbreaker. One is someone who waits in line.
So should they not have due process?
Well, it depends. You know that there's 3 ways that people don't have due process in this country?
How?
Because actually, according to the Supreme Court in 2019, if you come across the southern border within 14 days or 100 miles of the southern border, you can be deported immediately without due process because you're not an American citizen. Supreme Court ruled that. According to the Alien Enemies Act, which President Trump invoked with Kilmar Garcia, there's no due process that is necessary. So, as I have said, you do not need due process for that if you are an illegal alien invader in the interior of this country under those circumstances. If you're a homeowner, you need to listen to this. When's the last time you checked on your home title? That's the legal proof that you own your house. If you're like me, the answer is never. The problem is, in today's AI and cyber world, scammers are stealing home titles and your equity is the target. Here's how it works. Criminals forge your signature on one document, use a fake notary stamp, pay a small fee with your county, and boom, your home title has been transferred out of your name. Then they take out loans using your equity or even sell your property. You won't even know it's happened until you get a collection or a foreclosure notice. That's why you need to stop what you're doing and find out today if you're already a victim. Use my promo code KIRK at HometitleLock.com. Make sure your title is still in your name. You'll also get a free title history report plus a free 14-day trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. That's 24/7 monitoring of your title, urgent alerts to any changes, and if fraud should happen, they'll spend up to $1 million to fix it. Go to HometitleLock.com now. Use promo code KIRK. That's HometitleLock.com, promo code KIRK.
Let me take it back real quick. Let me take it back. You say that Biden had a atrocious economy.
Correct, and Trump's been president for like 104 days.
Yeah, and with the tariffs,
gas is down, eggs are down. Actually, let me look at this. Can you look at this chart for me? See, inflation drops to 2.4% in March, lower than expected. Thank you, President Trump. You see, it was going up right here. This was Joe Biden. You see that? Joe Biden, Trump. Joe Biden, Trump. Joe. You see Joe Biden, Trump. You see that? Joe Biden, Trump. And Trump is all the way upside down. Joe Biden, Trump.
Keep it up.
Can you do it with me? Joe Biden, Trump. Joe Biden, Trump.
Onward.
Do you want? I'll sign this for you. Do you want it?
Actually, yeah. Can you?
I will. Yeah.
My buddy, he also doesn't have a brain.
Doesn't have a brain. Okay.
Yeah. It's okay. He's still my friend. So I just want you.
Gotta hold it up to the camera. There you go. Inflation is down, everybody.
All right. I just want you, if at the end of Trump's presidency, and he, overall, it's a failure, will you admit that it was a failure?
I mean, yeah.
The tariffs are a failure. You can admit that.
Hold on a second, but first of all, what you consider to be a failure, I consider roaring success. I think border secure is very good.
I'm not talking about
hold on. I think manufacturing jobs coming up is very good. But again, if some things don't go well, I will be honest about it. But even right now, we're not agreeing on success or failure. You're saying Trump is failing, and yet inflation is going down. We're bringing jobs back to the country. We had a better jobs report than anybody expected last week. The stock market is fully recovered. We're about to get no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. So all of those things will work. You're going to see the opening of the American economy unlike anything ever before. I believe we'll see the end of the Russian-Ukrainian war. I believe we're finally going to see no men and female sports, no chemical castration of kids. And he's already delivered on all those promises.
Well,
so let me ask you. You were a big Biden supporter, right?
Not really. I mean, he was just well, actually, when Kamala was on the ticket, I'd rather vote for her than Trump. So I voted.
Fine. Hold on. So, but I mean, you're bashing on Trump. What was Joe Biden and Kamala Harris' biggest accomplishment? What was the one that really got you excited?
The Chips and Science Act.
Oh, the Chips and Science Act. Okay. Anything else?
And nobody even knows what the Chips and Science.
No, I know what it is.
I know, but I'm not talking about them. Obviously, you know it's your job. But all I'm saying is, when Biden left office, the inflation rate was at 2.3, 2.4%, right?
I've
Yeah, 2.4% total at the very end of his presidency. And when Trump announced his tariffs, both times it rose inflation to a staggering rate. Eventually, on the last round of tariffs, before the most recent one, when he
witness.
I got it. We got to get the next question.
All right. Well,
Final thing is this: are you cheering for Trump's success?
I'm cheering for America's success, and I'm not
Good.
cheering him.
Good. We can agree on that. We both want to see America succeed. Thank you, man. God bless you.
Smiles up.
Today I'm going to teach y'all how to solve every single Bible contradiction. We know that there are no contradictions in the Bible because the Bible is inerrant, it's God's word, and he cannot lie, he cannot contradict himself, he cannot deny himself. This is what the Bible says about God. He is a rational thinker. He has reasons for what he does. He doesn't say one thing and then do another thing. We as humans sometimes do that. We are irrational sometimes, but not God, okay? So we need to be thinking logically, rationally when we're reading the Bible. Some people might have the approach of, well, yeah, there's contradictions in it, but it doesn't matter. You know, Jesus is king and he rose from the dead. That's what really matters. There could be contradictions here and contradictions there, but that doesn't really matter because, you know, Jesus is Lord and, you know, he loves us. You know, that is not the right way to go about it, because if we can't trust it on this point here or this point there, why should we trust it on this point here about Jesus getting raised from the dead? It proves itself to be an untrustworthy document, in which case you make yourself out to be God. You found a contradiction here, you found a contradiction there, but for some reason you chose to believe this part here about Jesus getting raised from the dead. Why is that? Well, you're being arbitrary. Ultimately, it's going to be because it makes a person feel better. Okay, I don't care about the contradictions out here, but I love that Jesus rose from the dead, so I'm going to accept that part because then I'm going to avoid death. I'm going to go to heaven when I die or whatever. That's what it comes down to. We should not take that approach, but here we go. When it comes to thinking logically and finding contradictions, we have to understand the law of non-contradiction. A statement cannot be true and false at the same time. See statement 1, God is 1, and statement 2, God is 3. There are a lot of people out there who teach that God is 1 and that God is 3 at the same time. But according to the law of non-contradiction, the statement God is 1 cannot be true and false at the same time. It's either he's 1 or he is 3. And therefore the Trinity is false, and Islam might be true or Judaism might be true. The Trinity just doesn't make any sense at all. That's what a lot of people would say. That's because they don't understand logic, okay? There's something missing here. I hope you've noticed it. A statement cannot be true and false at the same time and in the same sense. You see, Christians don't teach that God is one and three
Every
at the same
mage
time
must
in the
face
same
their cry.
sense. No, we teach that God is one being and God is three persons, okay? So the statement God is
Welcome,
one
anguish.
can actually be true and false at the same time. It's just, it cannot be true and false at the same time and in the same sense, okay? For example, let's take the statement,
Do not
I am
look
gay.
away.
I'm gay, guys. But wait a second. I'm not gay, guys. Why would you think that I'm gay? I would never teach that I'm gay. Oh, here we go. There's more context. Okay, human language doesn't exist. Sentence here, sentence there, sentence
Shield it
here
from
without any
yourself.
context, and we have no idea what we're saying about anything because I'm gay and I'm not gay at the same time. What are you talking about? Well, in the first sentence, I am gay. That is, I am happy. Okay. And for the second sentence, I am not gay. That is, I'm not a homosexual. Now, when it comes to every single Bible contradiction that I've ever seen, it comes from people who don't understand this law. Okay. Every single time that I've ever seen, they just delete that part and they think that this is what the law of non-contradiction is. Okay. No, I can say something like atheists are good people and then atheists are not good people back to back, and I can be completely speaking true statements, but I just mean different things by them. Okay. And the Bible does this sometimes. But thank God the Bible isn't just one sentence here and one sentence there. Okay. It's a bunch of books written by people who understood how to communicate. Okay. Again, the presupposition that a lot of people have is that, oh, these are just older people, you know, evolution, survival of the fittest. These people they can't communicate as well as we do today. So there's bound to be some contradictions and we're just smarter than they are. So I reject that. I believe that the Bible is true. We're made in the image of God. We can talk to one another. No one's better than anyone else. Some might be gifted in wisdom and could be able to discern some things better than others. But you know, when it comes to all of humanity today, the average human today being smarter than the average man 2,000 years ago, that's simply unbiblical and illogical. Now, there's this website that tracks all of these supposed Bible contradictions. It's pretty interesting, actually. It tracks a whole bunch more stuff too, like these scientific absurdities and historical inaccuracies and cruelty and violence and misogyny, violence, discrimination against women, discrimination against homosexuals. I wonder why the sin of slander isn't in here. Like, God discriminates against slanderers. No. They just want to pick out these particular sins, like women not being submissive, which the Bible calls them to be, and people just love this sin in particular, so they're going to find that in the Bible. Oh no, I love that sin. The Bible must be wrong because I can judge things better for myself, right? I am God, not God. Let's just click a random one. Did Enoch die? Okay, verse says yes. Hebrews 11:13. These all died in faith, not having received the promises, having seen them afar off, and were persuaded of them, and embraced them, and confessed that they were strangers and pilgrims on the earth. So according to this website, Hebrews 11:13 says that Enoch died, but Genesis 5:24 says that Enoch walked with God and he was not, for God took him. So notice what Genesis 5:24 doesn't say. It doesn't say that Enoch didn't die. It says that God took him. It doesn't say that he never died. Okay, it's not part of the verse. Now, Hebrews 11:5, by faith Enoch was translated that he should not see death, or transported, basically, and was not found. Now we know God is omniscient. God knows exactly where he took Enoch, so this is referring to humanity. No human knew where God took him, okay? That's the point. Because God had translated him, or before his translation, he had his testimony that he pleased God. That was an interesting translation, but yeah, Hebrews 11 does say that Enoch was taken up, he did not see death, and he was not found because God took him up. We see elsewhere in the book of Jude that Enoch prophesied against the wicked. And later on in Hebrews 11, it says, all these died in the faith. And yes, all these is referring to Abraham, Sarah, Enoch, Noah, all these people, that's what he's referring to. Yes, so the Bible does teach that Enoch died. But what is this verse referring to? That he would not see death. Well, do we think that the author of Hebrews just didn't know how to communicate? He just doesn't know logic?
I will
No,
fight
he
with
does.
you,
What's the
but I
context
will
of this
never
verse?
call you
He was not
mother.
found
And I
by
would
who?
never
Remember,
ask you
us
to
humans, we don't know where God took him because God took him. It's simple. Enoch, who was a man of God, preaching righteousness, prophesying, and he was approved for being pleasing to God, and God took him up. We don't know where God took him, and then he later died. Simple. We see in John chapter 10 that the Jews picked up stones to stone Jesus, and it says that they were seeking to seize him, right, to kill him, and he eluded their grasp. Aha, Jesus escaped death. He would not taste death here. He escaped. God provided a way out for him to go through the crowds and whatnot. Oh, but another Bible verse says that Jesus was crucified. That's a Bible contradiction. No, it's not. Jesus did not taste death at this time, okay? And then he later died. He was crucified, right? Let's click another random one. Let's do whatever this one is right here. Was David alone when asking for the holy bread at Nob? All right, let's go to 1 Samuel 21:1. Then came David to Nob at Ahimelech the priest. Then Ahimelech was afraid at the meeting of David and said unto him, Why art thou alone, and no man with thee? So this verse teaches that he was alone. All right, Matthew 12 and Mark and Luke, these are the same. Jesus said unto them, Have you not read what David did?
Lives in the edge of my plate.
They that were with him, how he entered into the house of God, and he did eat the true bread, which was not lawful for him to eat, neither for them which were with him, but only for the priest. Well, that's interesting. Was David alone? Yes. Was David alone? No, he wasn't. Okay, let's read in context. David came to Nob to Ahimelech the priest, right? And he asked, Why are you alone? I know I'm with you. What does David say? Right? Just read the next verse. If you read the narrative, it's clear what's going on here. David said to Ahimelech the priest, The king has commanded me with a matter, and has said to me, Let no one know anything about the matter on which I am sending you, and with which I have commanded you. And I have directed the young men to a certain place. Who are these young men? The young men who were with David, of course. The point is, David is meeting alone with the priest, but his men were directed elsewhere, okay? Also, what does he say in verse 3? So now, what do you have on hand? Give 5 loaves of bread into my hand, or whatever can be found. Why 5 loaves of bread? Is this one person who needs just some bread? Why do you need 5 loaves of bread? Is he going to eat 5 loaves of bread? Again, law of non-contradiction. David was alone? True. David was not alone. Also true. In what sense? It was just the priest and him meeting alone. But David also had his men that were directed elsewhere. David was not alone, okay? And generally speaking, God is always with us wherever we go. We are never alone. Okay, what are we talking about here? Let's do another one. Let's try this one. All right. Is the law of God perfect? Psalm 18 says, God, whose way is perfect, the word of the Lord is tried. He is a buckler to all those that trust in him. The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. Those 2 verses teach that God's law is perfect, and Hebrews 8 says otherwise. But now hath he obtained a more excellent ministry, by how much also he is the mediator of a better covenant, which was established upon better promises. For if that first covenant had been faultless, then 2 more days have been sought for a second. So the book honestly cracks me up. That one is ridiculous. If you read Hebrews chapter 8, it's literally proving our point. Now Christ has obtained a more excellent ministry, by as much he is also the mediator of a better covenant, which has been enacted on better promises. You know, the old covenant with the old priesthood, the priests die over and over again. We gotta get new priests, so we gotta do these sacrifices all the time. We gotta slaughter all these animals over and over and over again. It just never ends. If these animals were meant to take away our sins, why do we have to keep doing it over and over again? No, the point is, it reminds us of sin. Okay? Now, the difference between Christ's sacrifice and those animals' sacrifice is that Christ's sacrifice does actually take away sin. Now, there would have been no occasion to suffer a second if the first covenant had been faultless. But finding fault with them, he says, Behold, the days are coming, says the Lord, and I'll complete a new covenant with the house of Israel, with the house of Judah. Moving on to verse 10. For this is a covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, says the Lord. I will put my laws into their minds, and upon their hearts I will write them, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. Yeah, the Old Testament says, in the Psalms that we read from the website, God's law is perfect. God's law is good. Also, it's not just the Old Testament that says that, and then the New Testament's like, oh no, the law is bad and it sucks. Good thing that we don't have the law anymore. Jesus came, just forget about the Old Testament. No, that would be heretical. The New Testament affirms the righteousness, the holiness, the perfection of the law. The law is spiritual, having been sold into bondage. Verse 12, the law is holy, and the commandment is holy, righteous, and good. We see in 1 Timothy chapter 1, we know that the law is good if one uses it lawfully. Amen. Now, you see, in Hebrews 8, it affirms the goodness, the perfection of the law. Why would God say that the law is perfect in the Old Testament, and then in the New Testament somehow contradict himself and say that the law is actually bad and the law is not perfect, and then say, I'm going to put my laws into their minds in the Old Testament and reaffirming that in the New Testament? You see, the problem with this so-called contradiction is that the law isn't mentioned.
Actually, Iceborne might have been pretty nice there.
And the Old Covenant, okay? There was a commandment in Genesis to Adam not to eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and he broke the commandment. Does that specific commandment apply to me today? No, absolutely not. But the same covenant that Adam was a part of, as well as all of the old covenant saints, as well as the new covenant saints, is the covenant of grace. Through faith in Christ Jesus, people have their sins forgiven, okay? So the law is good in the Old Testament, and the law is good in the New Testament. Let's do another one. Who killed Jesus? Did God kill Jesus, or did humans kill Jesus? Well, let's read Isaiah 53. He was pierced through our transgressions, he was crushed for our iniquities. Let's move on to verse 10. Yahweh was pleased to crush him, putting him to grief. Okay. If God would place his soul as a guilt offering, God put Jesus into this situation to crush him, okay? He will see his seed, he will prolong his days, and the good pleasure of Yahweh will succeed in his hand. So the crushing of Jesus, getting him put to grief, that was by the hand of God. That is simply what Isaiah 53 teaches, and I believe it, and I love it, okay? Acts chapter 2. You nailed to a cross by the hands of lawless men and put him to death. The evil, wicked people, the men put Jesus to death. Doesn't this contradict Isaiah 53? Oh, you know what? Let's,
No, God means it for good.
God did
People
all
mean
these
it for
miracles and
evil.
wonders and signs through Jesus, just as you yourselves know. This man delivered over by the predetermined plan and foreknowledge of God. You nailed it to a cross by the hands of lawless men. So predetermined by God, predestined by God. These people were predestined, predetermined to do exactly what they did to kill Jesus. And they're still called lawless men. So the scriptures teach both things. God predetermined this sin for the glory of God, the demonstration of God's righteousness, his holiness, his wrath, his love, his forgiveness on the cross. And it also teaches that these wicked men willfully did this. They genuinely chose of their own will to put Jesus to death. And also, it's not like Jesus was this guy who just didn't want to die and he was trying his best to get out of this. No. John chapter 10 says, I came that they may have life abundantly. He says in verse 18, no one takes my life away from me, but from myself I lay it down. I have authority to lay it down, and I have authority to take it up again. This command I received from my Father. Who took Jesus' life away?
lives
Was
in
it
the
those
edge
wicked
of my
sinners who
blade?
put him to death? No, it was Jesus. They didn't take it away from Jesus. Jesus did. They would have no authority to put Jesus to death if Jesus didn't let them. Okay, if that's not the biggest flex ever, then I don't know what is. Now, at the end of the day, there's going to be hundreds and hundreds of alleged Bible contradictions. They are apparent contradictions, not real contradictions that are solved in the mind of God. And it's good if we as Christians are familiar with the common objections. Oh, this is a contradiction here. Study, find out that it's not really a contradiction, just look at the context, right? That's good to know that. But if an atheist comes up with a contradiction that you've never seen before, like the one with David and him being alone or not alone, I haven't seen that one before. Clicked on it in this video. A lot of the times it's easy if you just know the Bible, you know that story and how David wasn't actually alone, okay? But even if you don't know the Bible very well and you don't know how to answer a specific contradiction when you're talking to the atheist, just ask what's wrong with contradictions. The thing is, the atheist is working under the presupposition that God exists and we should be reflecting his image. We should be obeying his law, thinking rationally, because God is a rational thinker. He doesn't contradict himself, okay? They know deep down we should be reflecting God's image because they're made in God's world. They can't escape from that knowledge. So this is what they do. Guys, wicked sinners who hate God. They have that knowledge of God in their hearts that we shouldn't be thinking irrationally, and they're going to use that knowledge that God gave them.
Some people actually do.
Okay, and so all you have to do to shut the atheist up is ask, why do we have to think logically? What's the point here? Should we think logically? Is there any obligation?
Think that we
to it?
should
Now,
be
most atheists are
irrational.
gonna say that objective morality doesn't exist, and that it's up to you. You just make up whatever you want. In which case, I can just
That they should continue believing what they believe.
What's wrong with that? Okay, I believe contradictory things all the time. There is no obligation for me to think rationally. Okay, let's just keep preaching the gospel, even though it doesn't make any sense to anybody, right? Because I think it's good. It helps me. It helps my friends, family members. We have peace with God, right? If we can just make up the truth, then it doesn't matter what you say about contradictions. I'm fine with contradiction. You see, on atheism, there is no obligation to think rationally, okay? So the fact that people even bring up Bible contradictions proves that they know that God exists deep in their hearts, but they're suppressing that truth. They want rationality, they want logic, they want to appear as if they're smart, they know what they're doing, and that they are basically God, right? They can think perfectly, they can analyze all the evidence and interpret it perfectly. Oh, but you silly Christians, you rely on the Bible, which you claim to be God's word, you don't know what you're doing. You're unintelligent, survival of the fittest, we're smarter, we are the ones who are going to propagate better and all this stuff, which is just really weird because atheists tend to have less children. It's just, you know, all sorts of contradictions in their worldview, but as Christians, we have all the answers, not we, but God who lives in us, right? So in conclusion, understand the law of non-contradiction, understand the context, there are no contradictions. And secondly, even if there were contradictions, on the atheist's worldview, it doesn't matter because I can still claim it's true and infallible and perfect, and we should all obey God anyway. And they have no authority to tell us that we're wrong for believing contradictory things. Anyways, please like this video and subscribe if you have not already. Comment down below what you want to see in future videos. But that'll be all for today. I love you guys so much.
Situation. We're gonna have to cut all of that out in the editing block. So for those of you who aren't like in the know, for those of you who aren't like properly don't watch VTubers a lot, it's still lagging.
One cut of many.
My control.
Blade and body. Alpha strike. Blade and body.
Because OBS looks like it's perfectly fine.
Stow the rations, shackle the prisoners.
It might be good. It should be good. I think YouTube's just tripping right now. YouTube is very, very confused about how I'm doing it. Yep. So, for those of you who aren't aware, who aren't like in the indie VTubing scene, there are two types of VTubers. There are VTubers who are very well. There's only one or two wholesome VTubers I can think of. But for the vast majority of indie VTubers, and even among the small corpos, you might notice something about them as you're looking at their VTubers. I'm just gonna compare this to Hololive, an actual company, right? When we look at like an actual company, VTubing company, right? Hololive. Praise God for fixing the stream, for real, thank God, thank God. It was also because I had to wiggle the antenna on my computer a bit, so that was Alright. When we look at some of the Hololive VTubers, some of them are a bit spicy. I will say that. Some of them are a bit spicy and you might not like they're a bit on there. Maybe you might want to. Most of but for the majority of these VTubers, even though some of them can be a bit like sexual, it's not like overt. It's not like they're pushing it in your face. And maybe there's one or two Hololive VTubers that actively really try to push it. Or three. There's a few I can think of right now, but for the majority of them, they're like say so. They're trying to be clean. They're trying to be wholesome. They're not. Insane. And thank you Axiom for the super chats, by the way. Sorry. So there's that. Those are the corporate. Some of the other corporate.
Nagakaboros moves
It really depends which one, but from the perspective of Hololive, it's kind of a mixed bag. Let's compare this to some of the indie VTubers that we're looking at today, the friend group of VTubers we're looking at today. Now, you may have noticed that there are a lot of black squares here. It's, and I say that because this is just like, it sucks, right? I think this is the heart of the problem that I'm gonna tackle at today, because people, I know some people might be surprised. Like if you're fans of Cinder, if you're fans of some of these indie VTubers, hey, that's perfectly fine. Like that's your prerogative to be fans of anything, any person that you want, I should say. But at the same time, these are the people that you are watching. If you are watching these VTubers, I think you kind of had it coming. You kind of had it coming, that's for sure. And this is, I'm trying to be not judgmental. I want to be the least judgmental as possible. But when you look at some of these VTubers, the models and the emphasis, like the fact that they have jiggle physics, the fact that their boobs bounce up and down, right, in a massive, highly exaggerated way, the fact that the majority of them are scantily clad. I'm looking at Fruit here, for example.
It's all very
Fruit here
standard issue.
isn't even wearing anything, right? She's barely wearing anything. These they're trying to grift to the Gooners, and that's ultimately it, right? These are, like, I think VTubing is a beautiful thing where you can get something wholesome like HoloLive, right? You can get something wholesome like this, where you're watching them mainly for the personality, maybe because they're skilled at the game, and because you want to see cute anime girls playing a game and playing it cutely, right? And that's the whole appeal to me behind VTubers, and the fact that you're able to capture the notions of beauty, notions of wholesomeness, and the fact that you're able to do that. Yago's dream, for real.
The lesson begins.
The fact you're able to do that, I think it's utterly amazing. And for that vision of VTubing, for that notion of VTubing to be perversive in a way that captures the male psyche, that captures the male gaze, in order to kind of exploit them, like, because that's ultimately it, right? You cannot tell me that these guys here, they're solo. Maybe there are some wholesome people. I know maybe Silvervale, like Silvervale's pretty wholesome, but you cannot tell me that there isn't, for a majority of the indies anyway, that there isn't some incentive for them, that they wanted to capture the male gaze enough that they were able to capture that particular audience in order to exploit them, saying, oh hey, I know you cannot, you often cannot get a girlfriend yourself. You often find it really, really hard to go outside. Maybe you're probably incredibly socially anxious. So hey, I know you have a job. You have a job. You're skilled somehow. In the case that they might have a girlfriend or they might have a wife, maybe her wife might be giving you a hard time right now. So why don't you look at me instead? I'm gonna provide you instead with that comfort. I'm gonna provide you instead. I'm gonna provide for your sexual urges instead, rather than you looking to a real human being, and you're gonna give me money. And that's always been it. You kind of get that with HoloLive as well. But again, as I said, at least with HoloLive, it's wholesome enough that, like, there are women who also enjoy HoloLive as well. It's not like it's wholesome enough that it caters to both genders, right? For some of the HoloLive, but with the indie VTubers, it's really
a new legacy.
To see anything, unless they're like that's what they're into. So yeah. Anyway, that's the whole point, right? Which is, these are women who are obviously really willing to exploit men who are socially anxious, who do have jobs, right? They're able enough to go out into the real world, to get a job, and pay these guys through super chats or through fan meets or through merch, right? They're able to do that. But it's an exploitation in the way that they're saying, I know you can't get a real girlfriend, but and maybe you are in the process of getting a real girlfriend, but I'll tell you what, I'm gonna provide you with an outlet to your sexual urges right now. I'm going to provide that fantasy for you, and you might eventually get a girlfriend. You might eventually go meet up with someone, but for now, I'm gonna exploit you as much as possible for as much money as possible right now, before going, and then you can go, and then you can leave. You know what I mean? That's I hope I'm cooking right. I hope I'm cooking
You
right.
have no alibi.
I'm a good person should be the biggest red flag. I think it just goes to show what kind of behavior prevails without God when people trust in themselves for goodness and morality or sacrificing their own life. For real, for real. Whole alive, we're wholesome enough. Yeah, it's wholesome. Like as I said, like Whole Alive does have a few bad apples. I'm not gonna mention them right now, just not to disrespect it. But like for the majority of them, right, they're not like overtly sexual. They're not pushing that, right? These guys clearly are, right? And there's a reason why we were like I've just put all of the black boxes here. So yeah. There you go. The way you say it makes it sound 100 times more pathetic than I saw you guys. Like that's the reality though. I can't see it any other way. And like I'm trying not to be judgmental. And if I am coming off that way, I sincerely apologize. But this is, I think this section of VTubing, especially, is because I can see. When I'm sure there are stories as well. I'm sure you can hear stories from some of these indies. But when I hear some of the HoloLive stories, like I've heard some HoloLive stories where people, because they generally didn't have a purpose in it. They generally like wanted to mix up the right. They didn't want to continue on living. And it was an amazing thing that they were able to then watch a see how people were like, you know what?
My lesson is complete.
Life sucks right now, but I'm gonna go and do some escape. And I'm sure with some of the indies they're able to do that, right? They're able to capture that. But my main problem, the differentiation here is that with some of these indies, they are here to provide like the woman experience, that these guys might not have had because they are too socially anxious or unable to go approach women themselves. So yeah, there's that. I think Pippa's life was saved by VTubing unironically. Yes, for real. The issues of idol culture affecting VTubers. Well, I think idol culture is actually so there are aspects of idol culture which are actually a good thing, right? Which is to say so. Like this, okay, sorry. This is an example of idol culture. There are some bad aspects of idol culture, right? Which is the guys looking at a girl and saying like, oh hey, I want you to remain single, right? I don't want you to be caught by anyone else. Like, I am purely following you because you're single, and I have a fantasy that one day I'm gonna hook up with you or whatever, right? That's one of the bad aspects of idol culture. And that bad aspect of idol culture has been carried over to these guys. Because what was the good aspect of idol culture, which wasn't carried over to these guys? The good aspect was, right, to remain say-so, to remain clean, and not to be a degenerate. Those were the good aspects of idol culture, which weren't. This is what happens. This is like you can literally see feminism destroying something which did have some bad. Like feminism took the very worst aspects of idol culture and then implemented it into the West. Plus, added the bad impact of feminism as well by showing like, oh look how sexually liberated we are by showing off as much as possible. So there you go. More like idolatry culture. For real. You guys are elite nerds. What is idol culture? Oh, sorry. So idol culture refers to so in Japan there are like these
Win big or die trying.
Turn the high stakes table, huh?
They go out. There are two aspects of idol culture. First is main say-so, and of course the bad one is the parasocial relationship between the fan of the idol and the idol. Where the fan tries to say, you need to say single because
looks like trouble.
I'm projecting
Something
image,
up my sleeve.
my own mind of what you
Show me your skill.
I commissioned a VTuber a few days ago. Artist makes $2.
Each strike spells a new legacy.
Because okay, I will say this: VTuber artists who do who do work for these, like, they're freaking good. They're really, really good.
Looks like
That's really bad.
I'm not gonna deny that. Like, they're incredibly, incredibly talented. Like the amount of technical work that goes into that. I mean, even sometimes I'm amazed how. It's yes. So it would be it's similar to stand culture, but with idol culture, it's done in a way because there is a intrinsically there is a very, very parasocial. It's stand culture, but next level because you're like you want to be romantically involved in this person, but that's ultimately it. That is it. That's it.
Blade and body.
For sure, the art is beautiful. All right, so. We're gonna watch this guy's video on it.
Who says I don't
So as I said, right. So for those of you who have joined us, right, I can't. I'm gonna try to censor as much as possible. But again, if this is something that causes you to stumble, I would suggest bugger off, right? Like go away, don't consent, right? Yeah, Hatsune Miku. Is one of the first VTuber idols. It's not gonna be the whole thing, but like your limits. Right? Like bugger off. Tell me to go, but because yeah, I'm just gonna be frank that way. So I hope there's like a summary somewhere here. I don't want to watch all of it.
Blue as the serpentine.
Let's just watch each section. I haven't completely watched myself.
I mentioned, the VTuber at the center of this controversy is Cinder, but she didn't always go by that name.
So this is the VTuber who's been caught up in
that fated day is never far from my thoughts.
She actually started off in 2020 as a YouTuber by the name of Tashi.
All right, I gotta we gotta pause here for a second. All right, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about in terms of these women know what they are doing. They are providing a service for these guys, and the internet kind of propagates this as well because obviously, like maybe 200 years ago, you would have to actually go to have to go to an institution that would actively propagate. You would have to go to like the red light district or that's the kind of thing. But you can see here, right? Oh, don't make me beg, master. It's like this is all ASMR roleplay. Am I good enough for you? I'm sorry you're so adorable. Will you let me? Like this is like I don't. It's as clear as it possibly gets. Oh, hey, Mac. Yeah, we're not gonna watch the whole thing. I have a life, so we're not gonna. So here's my whole point. I'm gonna keep pushing out. If these women are already so willing to exploit men and their fantasies, why would you be surprised that they'd be willing to exploit their friends, their colleagues? Why are you so surprised for that? So that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying, right? Which is, I'm gonna repeat that again. If these women are so willing to exploit men and their fantasies, why are you surprised that they'd be willing to exploit their friends and colleagues? Right? That's the whole thing with the Cinder situation, right? It's just so don't be surprised. Don't be surprised. Like let's look at the image again. All of these women here. Don't be surprised that one day we find out any of these women like end up like being psychopaths, right? Like that's yeah. There's that.
MP3, making a variety of different ASMR RP videos, like You're Such a Good Boy For Me ASMR RP. A year later, on June 2021, she would create her Twitch channel under the name...
So that we actually have a chance of getting through some of the important stuff, let's put it on 4.5 speed.
Cinder and would start streaming. During that time, she would build herself a small community of people. But the real turning point for her was a year later, on June 2022, when she would officially do her model debut. The whole thing was a resounding success, and people fell in love with her model almost.
Again, right? We're just be aware, guys. This ain't wholesome stuff. This ain't wholesome VTuber stuff. This is like this is Gooner bait.
Instantly. At the time, very few models looked like it, and it was seen as innovative, unique even. Not to mention that it had two very big reasons to keep your attention, I guess. During her debut, she would spend close to an hour showing off her model and the different features that it came with. After her debut, she...
Shoujo is literally the goon capsule of VTubers.
Blade
yeah,
and
you are
line,
entering
honed and sharp.
She got a lot of traction. People really liked her model and her personality. Nanolist was also able to gain some distraction because she was behind the design of her.
Let's not show that
her model. This allowed her to start receiving many commissions from other VTubers who wanted a similar style, and as you can see from how many followers she had in 2023, she was also able to grow exponentially. Cinder would understand that one of the things people loved about her was the design behind her model, so she stuck with Nano and would keep commissioning a new model or outfit every few months. Now look, when it comes to VTuber models and VTuber outfits, this costs a lot of money. We're talking thousands of dollars. The fact that she was able to do this every few months already showed the resounding success.
All right, there you go. That's another point. Well, and again, like, and you can see how it's literally just Gooner bait, right? You cannot deny. Still trying to figure out why Henya is part of VShoujo. Well, I think Henya wanted to go indie. Here's the thing with Henya, right? Henya is like she is incredibly wholesome. I think the only reason why she joined VShoujo was she didn't have enough confidence to go out as an indie outright, right? Because we've seen like Doobie 3D, we've seen Nimi Nightmare. I'm waiting on Euro's re-debut as either Senzo or something. And probably the money as well for Maru. Maru brings up a good point. There was VShoujo probably offered a side of it, right? Anyway, my point, I think there was the other factor, right? We didn't have the Doobie 3D yet. We didn't have a Nimi Nightmare, and we don't have a Senzawa / Gura re-debut, right? I think in a world where we're seeing all of these polarized re-debuts, the world of that, like it's not a surprise to me that Henya may not have had the confidence outright. So, there you go. I do think she was treated unfairly as speaking, so wanting a Corpo when she makes sense, but it's odd that it's VShoujo. Well, VShoujo is the only one that's like independent. Sodom and Gomorrah, for real. But as you can see, okay, that was a really important point that brought up by Newton, right? Which is like, she was earning a lot of money from this, obviously. Just from the fact that she was able to commission so many designs for a model, so many outfits. It just goes to show that it works, right? The Gooner grift works. the Gooner bait grift definitely works, right? There's no doubt about that's for sure. And at the same time, right, it's, yeah, you saw a glimpse of some of those outfits, absolutely insane, and like, let's just compare this to someone who is blade and body. I hate to bring up Nimi Nightmare again. I got it. I gotta bring up Nimi Nightmare. Not because I'm a Nimi Nightmare stan. Well, obviously I am, but it's just like, it's not really. Blade and body. Alpha strike. There, as you can see here, this is an example of wholesome, right? She doesn't have to show herself. She doesn't have to be like, oh, look at me, right? Like, we gotta get all the gooners in on this one, right? Like, this is a good example as to why I feel like Nimi Nightmare is such a talented streamer. Like, she knows already. she knows she's talented enough, and she can get there. That she doesn't need the support of the gooners to basically be successful. Unlike some of these other VTubers who are dependent on the support of the gooners. So, yeah, it is a cute outfit, though. Really cool. from that stuff, for real, for real. Alright, let's
Blade and body.
Success that she found in content creation. Her average view count on Twitch was unstoppable, reaching thousands of concurrent viewers today, ranking her as the 471st most watched content creator on the entirety of Twitch. Part of the reason of that growth was that she was able to be a part of the VTuber friend group that included
Yep. And this is like this is the VTuber friend. Chibi Doki is less. Like the only wholesome people here I could say are pretty wholesome are probably Chibi. The AI thing, even though Shy Lily's like model is absolutely insane, at least she's pretty wholesome sometimes, and Fillion here as well. Otherwise, literally everyone here in this friend group, especially this person here, this person literally has a song titled CPR, and it's not CPR in the way that you think it's CPR not on the chest, but CPR on a particular body part other than the chest, and I'm gonna leave that up to your imagination. There's this person here. There's this person here. I can't remember. Melody especially can be wholesome, but she literally started off her career as a VTuber character. This person here, Bao as well. Bao, I'm pretty sure has started making pornography on Patreon. I'm pretty sure. So as you can see here, these aren't like the most amazing people ever. These aren't like the most morally upstanding people in the world. So
Before strength. Blade and body.
yeah.
Alpha strike. Blade and body.
I've never heard of Cinder, but can anyone give a little context on what it is? She's okay. So she basically like I think some of the let's see. From just what I looked, she manipulated her VTuber outfits. And I think in regards to these VTubers, Bao, I haven't seen Bao's statement. I've seen Silverveil's statement actually. So she was very, very mean. She was very, very manipulative of certain other VTubers as well. So that's all literally. Yeah, I think I want to cover the manipulation with Nano. We're gonna skip forward to Bao as well because I haven't seen that, and Sak as well. Lying and bad employer by the looks of it. So.
the biggest indie VTubers on the planet. She was seen as a dear friend, and as far as the others knew, that's how she saw them too. Always collabing together and always being a part of their tier lists or whatever other challenges they do. But that's not all. Her success knew no bounds. In the beginning of 2025, she announced that she was a partial owner of the company GamerSubs. This is a huge energy drink company that sponsors many of the top VTubers in the world. She even released her own shaker with them, and the art on the shaker, of course, was also made by Nanolist, and it sold out completely. All this to tell you that she was extremely successful. Guys, she was never in any controversy. As far as anyone was concerned, she had a very warm and kind personality, as well as a really cool design. So of course, no one could have ever expected that.
Sorry, I just gotta say that as well. Some of the let's scroll down. Let's read what that says. Welcome to hell. Like, this is the other thing with the VTubers as well, right? With a lot of indie VTubers, which is they lean into like, oh hey guys, look, I'm a
Fiddlesticks could be like a challenge mode for that Twisted Fate.
I'm assuming this is like Firefox from hell, right?
With challenges, they aren't particularly interesting. You could like just replay the game mode, the Twisted Fate battle over and over again until you get a bunch of draw cards.
Because they literally do have the Succubus VTuber as well in here, and
like a deck that can win from bench, and then you solve Fiddlesticks.
Is that they are demon guard dogs, right? So it's just so blatantly what am I trying to say here? It's so blatantly clear that Satan is actually working through, like, it is influencing so many people here. Like, it's just, I cannot believe it.
I'm unsure how Jax will go. Jax is interesting.
That Satan makes it so blatantly obvious that he's working or influencing through all of those things. So
yeah, it really isn't that hard to like
It would just take one document to make her entire successful career come crashing down in an instant.
Yeah,
But that's
no, you're right, Bob.
It's
Sorry,
not
I'm
subtle
trying
in
to
a
be
lot of
nice here.
areas.
You can say, like, I'm trying to be as least judgmental as possible, but I understand if you looked at that and said, nope, Satan is completely controlling them, I'm not gonna, like, deny that. I'm not gonna stop you from saying that. I'm trying to be nice here because I do recognize that these are people that need to be saved, right? Like, they need Jesus. Like, they absolutely need to do it. But at the same time, there is that truth as well, right? Which is, why are you doing this in the first place? Why, like, if not for the outside of the money, what else are you doing here? At least as a VTuber, you aren't exposing yourself like IRL. But in terms of your other influences, who are you worshipping? And Satan, if it's not the money, it's probably Satan, right?
Exactly.
Yes, Satan seduces women very, very well these days, for real, for real.
what happened. On April 26th, 2025, Nanolith.
Can anyone define me the meaning of gooner? Like, so a gooner is someone who it's a person who is very, very alone, and is controlled by their sexual urges. So like, not controlled by their sexual urges that they go out and have sex with women. They are so controlled by their urges that they pleasure themselves in the vicinity of their own home, and they don't have any other life around that. So that's how I'd see it. I am spot on. Sorry, I have been influenced. I am currently working in a school right now, and one of the people in the school, the English teacher in particular, is absolutely based, and he literally every time I come into the staff room, like I hear him rant about how everything is controlled by Satan. So I'm probably being influenced by him.
No, I mean it's just true.
So, yeah.
We want quick strike, blade, and flight.
I've heard gooning defined
That's
as
very useful.
sexualization of that particular discipline. I wasn't aware of that.
Who at this point had become completely associated with Cinder's brand, had published this tweet saying, "Hello, I'm here to share something that has affected me personally and hurt others. This was very hard for me, but I feel like it's necessary. Please do not send hate to anyone on my behalf. This is all I want to say." Link
Alright, so this is I did see this making the rounds on Twitter. I didn't actually, this is what I mean, right, that I do have a life, right? I can see things on Twitter, I don't have to make a comment on them, or I don't have to, like, actually look into this. But, so from my understanding, anyway, Nanoless is someone who makes VTuber art for a lot, makes VTuber models for Cinder, but also makes VTuber models for a lot of people, particularly in that indie VTuber perspective that Cinder's in right now. And then this was absolute bombshell, right? Where he or she, I can't, where they, I'll say they put out this Google Doc saying they're terminating the work. And some of the things in here are a bit insane.
King a Google Doc with the title.
We're only gonna look into the surface level of it, but I'm pretty sure it is literally just manipulation and gaslighting.
Terminating my work with Cinder. And in the replies, one could see the biggest independent VTubers on the planet fully and unconditionally supporting Nanolist with this document. So let's take a look. Nano starts off with introduction and notes, saying, "I wanted to share my experience with Cinder and Red manipulating me, using me, and dragging me into drama while sabotaging, slandering, and spreading lies about people I thought were her closest friends." So before we continue, you know who Cinder is, but who the hell is Red? Well, Red, otherwise known as Redacted, has been Cinder's manager since she started.
This is funny, right? So this is the thing, right? Publicly, on the public face of like the Cinder brand, Red is meant to be Cinder's manager, but we'll find out later that he's actually just her boyfriend. And the reason why this isn't disclosed, again, right? The reason why this isn't disclosed is because these VTubers know. These VTubers are fully aware of idol culture within the VTubing community, right? And the reason why Red isn't like, "Oh hey guys, I am Cinder's boyfriend," the reason why he's not public about that is because these guys, the people watching Cinder, would stop watching Cinder if they found out that she had a boyfriend. Sorry, I just had to get that out. But again, it's the manipulation, right? If they were willing to manipulate lonely men, if they were willing to manipulate people, right? If they were willing to manipulate all these people watching them, why are you so surprised that they would manipulate the people who are working for them, their colleagues, VTubers that they work with as well. Why are you not surprised? Why am I not surprised? I'm not surprised, that's for sure. This is a mafia killing your soul instead of your body, for real, for real. If you would get upset by your Oshi getting a boyfriend, take that as a warning sign, for real, for real, for real. And I think for all of these guys, if you guys, like, if anyone's watching this who are regular viewers of VTubers and would get upset that they have a boyfriend, like, don't. Like, that's a sign that you need to get a life. You need to get out and get a job, that's for sure. If a boyfriend is toxic, the girl would do the same. Yes, yes. That's my thing on Red. I gotta respect the guy for like being.
I don't think corrupted star fragment's gonna be very useful with Evelyn.
There is no love.
I think we may have to get an epic relic.
This has been a well-known fact.
In order
If
to
you
equip
knew
a
her or
hex
worked
core.
with her or whatever, you typically did it through Red. He was somehow involved all the time. So this document wasn't just talking about Cinder, it was also talking about him. Nano continues. Not only do I no longer wish to work with Cinder,
Oh, sorry, I just gotta let's highlight this picture as well. the signs were there, guys. There was no illusion at all that this guy was her boyfriend. I mean,
Maybe by
this is-
herself. Wait, the gold card doesn't
kinda
get
over,
fizzled
like,
by
it's
Fizz,
kinda
so
over
it might
these
not
guys
get denied
who-
by Evelyn's ability either.
who are
Her
upset
champion
that
spell.
Cinder has a boyfriend. This is why I personally avoid the VTubing space, aside from you podcast on. Again, like
Or we
some
could do
indies are
Poro
great.
King and get
It's
very
just
big
this
units.
particular friend group, which is so.
Yeah, Evelyn would be kind of like a
influenced
Nasus
by-
setup. Like she has like a
which is so
strike
influenced
ability
by,
that you get each round from counterplan, and then you
it's this
accumulate
particular
keywords and
brand
stuff.
of VTubing which I dislike, right? Like I'm okay with another brand of VTubing which is directly influenced by Japan, right? Which is why I support it. Right? But there's the other brand of VTubing which is darker, which is very, very lewd, and is there purely to exploit men. So yeah, because at least with Hololive there is like, I will agree. I will concede that there may be some level of exploitation of men, right? But at the same time, I do hear stories of how like people were lonely and they were able to pick their life back together because they found something to found something to fight for. Right? They found something to be happy about, right, every day, and that's like it's kind of the appeal of Hololive for me as well, which is like these are like they're really cute, right? It's a good thing to admire beauty, and it's a good thing to admire things which are cute, right? Of course, you can go a little too far, but there's that. All right.
But I want to share what I've endured over the years and shed light on what she has been doing behind people's backs to protect artists and friends that may be experiencing something similar. I struggled a lot with writing this document and wasn't sure if what I felt and experienced working was real or just burnout, but I think this proves that I was lied to and manipulated over the course of years while working with Cinder. Note, based on working with Redacted and Cinder over the years, that I am sure they speak for each other and there is no reason to believe Red was acting without Cinder's consent and knowledge. Whenever I use they or them, it refers to both of them acting as a team. English not being my first language and the language barrier, I discussed the situation, my feelings and thoughts with native English speakers who helped me put them into words so everything is clear.
Let's see. I'm gonna... Let's just go through the first exchange, and then we'll skip through over this, because I think the first exchange kind of... Or maybe around here. Again, I don't want to waste too much of your guys' time, so... maybe we'll just do the first set of DMs, because that kind of gives a... gives a sense of where this artist was going anyway. I know this is a serious video, but his voice is so freaking fast. Yeah, it is, but don't worry about it. I honestly don't like VTubers.
Bursting backpack might have been a good one for later.
Yeah, that's also...
We do want like
At
a
least,
lot
again,
of one
this
cost
is why-
units that we can start
We
scaling
need to have the say-so culture as well.
our
You'll
board.
notice this with the Hololive VTubers who graduated and became indies. Like someone like, again, I keep glazing Nimi Nightmare, but she's the perfect example of what VTubing should be, right? Nimi doesn't swear a lot. Even though she's indie now, she doesn't swear a lot, unless it's for like a karaoke where she may be reluctant to swear, or she's okay to swear in that one. But otherwise, it's not within her vocabulary to continue swearing. So.
It's all in our best interest. In addition to spreading ill rumors, they also complain and accuse Bao of giving their editor too much work, resulting in the editor not having any time for the clients, which will be important later on. The screenshots below show them showing their affection and appreciation, immediately followed by spreading rumors and lies to make other clients appear problematic to manipulate any future decisions regarding commissions. So these are fairly recent.
All right, so actually, let's not read through all of it. Well, I don't want to go through all of it. But from the sense, from what I'm getting, they're basically telling Nano, hey, so on one hand they're like, they're really friendly to other creators, and they're like, yep, we're gonna be friends forever, like we're absolutely amazing, we want to continue working. But then behind the scenes, to this artist that they want to keep for themselves, they don't want this artist to go out and make art for other VTubers. They just want Cinder wants to keep this artist for herself, so that this artist continues making stuff for her. So they're telling this artist, hey, you shouldn't work with those other guys. You should only work with us, because those other guys are absolutely insane, and they're really right? That's what I get a sense. I got a sense of anyway from all of this. I don't want to go through all of it because it's 30 minutes of stuff, right? I'm more interested in what Bao said, because I haven't caught up on this as well. This might be.
Trust me, they add up.
Oh, whoops.
Both Cinder and her manager were trying to keep away from Nano, even though they were friends. In which Redacted says, "We don't work with Bao, Cotton, or Blank at all again." She tweeted this, saying, "This made my stomach drop to read." It makes
So there you go. What about we can pay Kamari for you? You don't have to discount it for the next payment, and we'll continue giving you lots of model work. I think for this year right now. But you don't work with Bao, Cotton, or Blank at all again. Models or art. I don't think you've ever done anything with Bao or Cotton before. We also have another GS label for you too, the AFK. Is there any way to add a little bit more still asks for art, since Blank still asks for art every now and again. So again, like you can see from this, this was like the first part of the manipulation. Like this guy, Cinder really wanted this artist just to work for them and not to work for anyone else. That's all it is. Even Cinder's boyfriend got involved in this shit. Well, I think they work together, right? They're working together. There you go. It's all up to God. Nothing lasts forever. Corruption always comes from all sides. For real. The funniest part is the guy's name is Redacted. Yeah, no, it is. It's really funny. Every time I read it, I was so confused until I finally watched this video and like, oh, that's his name rather than.
It's very sad to have
yes, that entire group just feels so fake because they know. Like, I feel like that's the face they put on, right? And then I'm sure there are like some genuine friendships there. But at the same time, like they all know what they're doing, so that's why they've all joined up together, because they all know they're exploiting men. So it's yeah, it's rough. It's rough. I was just watching a video on this recently. Oh, that's good. That's good stuff.
Like this, sending Nano and Bao so much love. I mean, I can't even imagine thinking that someone's my friend and they're out there in DMs getting their manager to gatekeep an artist from me because they think I'm a threat to them. But of course, Cottontail was far from being the only one affected here. 5 minutes after Nano released her document, Bao quote tweeted and said, "I was very hurt by someone I thought was a friend."
Oh boy, oh boy. Now this is something I really hope we don't get this in the VTubing community. Or at the very least, we gotta be careful within our Christian VTubing community that we are not friends. Right? We may be online colleagues, and we may be like friendly, but I don't know you, and you don't know me. All you know about me are from the messages that I send you, the content that you watch of me. You absolutely do not know me.
Bounty board, no.
So I really hope, like, I think once it's okay. All right? I'm not gonna do like a tut from people within the Christian VTubing community who are saying, oh, like, hey, we're friends now. But even from my perspective, right, I'm really careful. I gotta be, I try to be as careful as possible not to be friends with you guys, as you are, because we don't want to be parasocial. So yeah, you do not know me. That's a.
I go wherever the waves take me. I'm all
You honestly don't know you so much, bro. But I mean, you have a good heart, and I wouldn't. Don't you dare. Like I try to be as nice as possible here at tomorrow. Don't you dare assume that of me, alright? Because that's how you have like this. I think of people like Ravi Zacharias, right? Or even Steve Lawson, just recently. And if I was a fan of those guys, I'd be absolutely heartbroken. Because I'm sure you'd be like if you are a fan of like Steve Lawson or Ravi Zacharias at tomorrow, I'm sure you'd say like, we honestly don't know much about Ravi. We don't know so much about Mr. Lawson. But I know that they have a good heart. I think you're setting yourself up to be disappointed.
I'll hunt them where they breathe.
Never meet your heroes for.
With her own.
Right, I do want to see what Bao said because I haven't actually.
Google document. Now look, many friends of Cinder were involved in this, but Bao was more involved than most because this didn't just concern Nano, it also concerned editors as well as animators. So here's what Bao had to say in her document saying, "Hello, this is Bao. I will only speak to what Nanolist has decided to share with the public and the messages that directly mention me by name. I would like to kindly ask everyone to refrain from turning this into a witch hunt and remember that we are still humans at the end of the day. Before I start, I want to point out why
I don't like that like again, we are still humans at the end. This is like, oh, it's liberalism oozing, it's just oozing liberalism. No, like, but we are called to a standard. Again, especially in like VTubing, where like so much money is involved. Like there is a level of accountability that needs to be had.
Addressing both Cinder and Redacted, despite the messages being largely from Redacted. Many times throughout the messages, the words "we," "we're," "our" occur numerous times. As someone who was close to
I mean, it's not like you do anything sus like thinking Malcolm Trains down his school or something. Now, I will stand by that. As I always say, the dating pool was just between me and Malcolm.
Nothing but the stink of blood and sweat.
I will always stand by that.
Close to and worked with Cinder for years. I have first-hand experience in how Cinder and Red collaborate and the extent to which Red operates as her primary point of contact in a professional in-person project.
I do agree.
It is that experience that leads me to believe that all requests and messages sent by Red were both known about and approved of by Cinder. In March 2024, I announced that one of my subathon goals was a live 2D model. This right here is the tweet of her announcement. If she reaches 10,000 subs, she's going to commission a new sexy model.
This is just like, again, like, even with Bao, like, as much as I really want to support you right now, Bao, because you were obviously, like, caught up in this situation. Like this is, this ain't showing much, right?
Yeah, I like playing Poro King into they don't have this ability, but overwhelming power ability, where they get +1/+1. Their deck gets that each round because you scale harder.
I found a scary bit of technology recently. And I don't think you should be
brewing up some trouble.
You should be friends with people online either. So even if they're famous or even if they're not famous, right? So that's just my 2 cents. Mainly because I found a scary bit of technology. It's insane.
Mommy Live 2D model. That's what she's referring to. She then continues, Nanolist was going to be the Live 2D illustrator. After she finished both the design and base model sketch, there was suddenly back and forth on whether or not she had the physical and mental capacity to continue my model. I was very sad, as I had not only teased the screenshot of the model sketch on Twitter, but I had grown very attached to the design and showed it to all my friends in a private group chat that Cinder was a part of. I shared how devastated I was, and she did not comment or say anything despite others in the group chat comforting and reassuring me. I now realize that the reason for her silence was because Cinder and Redacted were deliberately sabotaging ongoing commissions and blocking VTubers such as myself from having access to art from Nanolist. She then shows us the same screenshots that were in Nano's document, in which we now know that Bao, Cotton, as well as other VTubers were directly targeted by both Redacted and Cinder. Bao then continues in her document and says, Nanolist asked Redacted on why he is encouraging her to not finish her model. Redacted then lists my name amongst various VTubers as well as the vendettas Cinder and Redacted harbor against each. She then lists all these reasons that they were targeting Bao. The first one being, Bao has been getting on our nerves for a while. The second, she hijacked our YouTube editor. The third, constantly picking up artists that we work with. The fourth, now she's barking up the tree of one of our live 2D animators. And the fifth, has a way of guilt tripping others to get
Alright, so I will say as well, this is a good example of why, as much as capitalism is brilliant thing, it's an individualism, right? Rugged individualism. They are good constructs. Without Christ, capitalism and individualism without Christ is what we see here right now, right? Where people are incredibly aggressive. Like they only see people as commodities. They only see people as something that they can as means to gain even more money. That's the problem with capitalism, and that is the problem with individualism without Christ. So this is just, and we can see the and this is these people are products of feminism, and they are products of the post-Christian culture. So again,
Come on a musical journey.
It's amazing the myriad of ways one can get lost without Jesus. Real, Jesus is the only way to life. I feel like Cinder equals peasant mindset.
Way. This is what Redacted lists as reasons why Nanolis should cancel her ongoing life to decommission with me, all the while continuing to collaborate with me and pretending to be my friend. This is not
that's really scummy behavior, right? It's just
what friends do. Friends do not sabotage other friends out of business opportunities. Friends do not spread lies that fuel selfish narratives. Friends do not use the private information they get from the privilege of being close friends just to use it to manipulate others. If stepping on your friends and abusing your power and connections is how you get to the top, then I hope you realize no one will be left when you get there. She then links another screenshot we saw in Nano's doc.
Cool. Oh, and this is insane as well. Did you cancel models? I did not. Nano arc delayed to 2026. I'm scared to cancel with Bao. You shouldn't be. She has so many connections. She'll find someone super fast. Do you already design her outfit? I remember her showing it to us at WeebCon. I could give her the design for free as an apology gift. And it's just like, all right. That's all I needed to know with Bao. I don't think that's relevant to us right now. What else do we need? Cinder's first statement. Let's
with all these documents,
Cinder's first statement in regards to this. This was really nutty when I first saw this.
Releasing pressure was mounting very hard on Cinder, with people demanding answers. So many looked up to her and loved her content purely because
emotes. I don't want to look at the emotes either. So.
Of how warm and gentle and kind of a person she portrayed herself on streams. But now people were realizing this was nothing more.
Drax, you're gonna get the Cliff Notes version at the end of all of this.
More than an illusion. Hours later, Cinder finally tweeted something, saying effective immediately. Redacted will no longer be managing or overseeing my VTuber activities. He no longer represents me as a creator, my brand, or my intentions. I'm sorry, everyone. I will make a larger response when I'm able. So I'm sure you wouldn't be surprised when I tell you that this response left a lot to be desired. But then another VTuber pointed out something very interesting. Fanpeaches replied to that tweet and said, I remember playing Phasmophobia with you and hearing Red chat away next to you before you first debuted like 4 years ago. You told me he was your boyfriend. Then before we met for TwitchCon, you switched up and said, just so you know, my manager is coming with me on this trip, as if I didn't know who he was. It's even ickier to read this tweet knowing he is your significant other and that you're probably going to try and avoid taking responsibility for hurting people who trusted you as friends by nuking the Reds.
So it's kind of Jover at this point. It's kind of Jover for
side of this duo.
No, Cinder's not Christian. No. This is like, we're just covering indie VTuber drama right now. Hey podcast son, I've been thinking of creating a Christian YouTube channel in the future where I talk about entertainment and we engage with Christians. I mean, again, I'm always like pro make YouTube channels, right? But like I'm not the guy for it, like for advice for it. I would suggest you going to a channel like vidIQ or look at someone like Nate Black on YouTube, because they provide way better advice than I could ever do. Cinder is 100% for real.
Take me for a spin. Ha ha.
Yeah, I'd pray about it as well, because like this channel has only come about as a result of prayer and like God prompting me to do it.
You've gone and spoke
so yeah, and obviously we're at 12,000 subs right now. I don't think I would have ever gotten to 12,000 subs if it wasn't for God's blessing it and God working through it. So I was scared you were going to be a lukewarm Christian, but you're not scared to say what the Bible teaches. For real. We gotta do this.
So as everyone could have guessed, Redacted is her significant other. He's her boyfriend and he lives with her. She was fully aware of what he was doing and approved of it, and yet right now she was throwing him under the bus to try and save her career, when everyone knows this is nothing more than a desperate attempt to save your skin without facing any...
I gotta say, like, if I was Redacted in this position right now, I'd be really annoyed that my girlfriend basically threw me under the bus. It would be insane.
responsibility. It was a very lackluster response to an apocalyptic expose on who she is behind the scenes. And speaking of who she was behind the scenes, someone else came out with a document by the name of Rain on a topic that no one could have ever expected, saying, fuck it. My experience with Tashi/Cinder, content warning, cheating?
This is hilarious. Oh my goodness. Sorry, I really shouldn't be like it's just I didn't even see this. I didn't even see this at this point. Oh my goodness. I wanna now I'm interested to see this. Like what in the world this is all about.
Just keeps getting worse. Let's look at this document. So this goes back way before.
No, they're atheists. Like they're feminists. Right? They worship the god of this world. They worship Satan. Or they're Satanists, right? They're essentially atheism, Satanism. I don't do that.
Or Cinder was even a thing. This is about Tashi, her previous persona. Things were getting so spicy, my tongue isn't working anymore. The document starts off with, hello, thank you for taking the time to read this document. The events described in it happened about 4 to 5 years ago before the first Cinder debut. I understand there will be accusations of me clout chasing by revealing them. However, I wanted to corroborate Nanolis's assertion that she is not who she appears to be on the surface, and confirm that no matter how much damage control she does, she's just as responsible as Runeterra. The first section is titled The Beginning. Cinder and I met while she was still running her Tashi.mp3 YouTube channel, which is why all the following screenshots were showing as Tashi rather than Cinder, and that will come up later. At the time, she was only starting her account, and I already had my own ASMR RP channel with 8K subscribers, and as a bigger channel than her, she couldn't wait to work with someone as talented as me. This message dated.
That's great. That's great.
It's back to May 2020 with Tashi saying, you'll get there. It's still hard for me to believe that someone so talented likes my voice enough to want to work together. Rain continues and says, we never ended up actually making any content together, but Debbie stopped us from talking pretty much every day at the time, and eventually she found a new way to make it useful. The next section is titled, Oh Dear. Pretty much immediately she was flirting with me despite, as you can see here, having a boyfriend and both of us knowing she had a boyfriend, including regularly talking shit about.
This is like... It's so over at this point. Again, she's bisexual as well. Like, bro, you're not piecing the allegations at this point. It's.
To me while telling me how great it would be if I were to replace him. What the hell? He continues, I understand that I'm no angel in this myself, but hey, at least I can be honest about it. Oh my god. Anyway, here are the DMs. It starts off with Rain saying, besides, you said it's hard when your boyfriend is far, far away. I'm not your boyfriend, am I? Which Tasha said, no, but how nice that would be. Your perfect boyfriend material heart. Okay. Rain then continues, oh ho, so you want to go.
Is Rain a guy? VA guy. Oh, he's a guy as well. Okay, sorry. Let's retract it. I wouldn't be surprised if they were bisexual, but you know what? We'll retract that statement. That's insane. E-dating. The cardinal sin of being online. E-dating. It's so Jover. It's so Jover. Sorry. I'm gonna retract that statement. I still wouldn't be surprised. But you know what? That's absolutely insane that they would do. Sorry, I wasn't aware there was like male ASMR stuff, but obviously there is male ASMR stuff. I don't want to go through that. Oh wait, let's see.
Easy, tigerfish.
You know what? Okay. Why don't? Let's look at some of this. This looks interesting.
And she says, hi honey, I've been talking to this guy about how badly I want him to fuck me since he wanted to buy a flashlight instead of giving me any attention when I'm needy. What? Right, that says, fucking oof, dude. Literally, why would you even need a flashlight when you have a girlfriend? And then Tashi/Cinder replies with, he sent me a screenshot a couple weeks ago telling me he was getting one and had the nerve to use it in front of me to show me how great it was. Wow, yeah, it must be great. Rain then says, yo, what the f? That's like me inviting you to a chat room so you can watch me fuck someone else in all the ways I said I want to fuck you. To which she replies with, isn't that great? Rain then says, I'm very slowly not feeling as bad for him about all this.
I don't want to go. That's hurting my head too much. Let's continue on. What's this next section? Spite bullying.
Two wrongs do not
Another
make
big
a right.
independent YouTuber posted this on Twitter, quote tweeting Nanolis saying my experience with Cinder in attack.
Sorry, you're right. I gotta use
More
that.
so if it's 3 wrongs
fractal.
because you
Just
made
like,
it up
it's
with the first
degeneracy
one.
upon degeneracy, just being like it's one of these things, right? I think I gotta mention this as well. Some people, when people talk about how sexually liberated they are as a result of the sexual revolution, and then realize, oh, why is the world as bad as it is today? Because sins build upon other sins, I think. Even in my experience, I could definitely see in my own life how sins build upon other sins. Because once you start sinning in one area, and you're not faithful to God in one area, which is why it's really difficult for me. So that's kind of my struggle, right? Once you start doing that, then what's stopping you from being unfaithful to God in another area of your life? So, and then another area of your life, and then another area of your life. So ultimately, it's like, yeah, it's degeneracy fractal. So yeah. e-dating is like one of the worst things because you could be completely fake. And again, like the dangerous, the really shocking technology I found out recently. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. This was just an excuse for sexual immorality and any excuse to sin, for real, for real. Until you meet the person in person, yep. So, all my homies hate this episode, for real, for real.
Attaching a Google document of her own. This is when we uncover one of the 2 last missing pieces of the puzzle. There are 2 more VTubers that were backstabbed by Cinder that were censored in Nano's original document. So which one is Spike? Well, let's read the document. It starts off by saying, I want to start by saying please do not send any hate to anyone involved in this. I only wish to speak about my experiences and give more clarity on those experiences. First and foremost, my love and admiration goes out to Nanolis for having the courage to bring this to light. Artists are the backbone of our community, and taking advantage of her goodwill personality is saddening to see. I want to take the time to address what has been brought to light involving myself and what I've experienced over the years that coincide with these events. In this screenshot, the VTuber that is being talked about is very clearly me. Since the beginning of my VTuber journey, it has been written in my backstory and lore that I'm the daughter of Cerberus, and through an unforeseen summoning mishap, the Greek goddess Hecate. As many may know, Cerberus is a species of hellhound, and I've always incorporated the number 3 in my designs to follow the 3 heads of Cerberus in my early design, and when artists were still learning new model/rigging techniques, I had opted for 2 other wolf heads on my shoulders as pauldrons to symbolically represent my 2 other heads. However, the repeated comments of, if you're a Cerberus, where are your other 2 heads, had pushed me to use the broader term hellhound at the time. Fast forward to months to a year into my journey, and I started to receive harassment and berating comments and chat messages on Twitch and YouTube videos comparing me to Cinder and putting me down to being hellhound. Making the definitive switch to the Cerberus label brought me a sense of relief because the last thing I wanted was to be constantly compared or harassed at this point. I didn't want to be associated with
hellhound racism.
Then she links one of the screenshots that were included in Nano's document in which Redacted claims that Spike unfollowed Cinder on Twitter, and this is what she has to say about it. As for the claims of unfollowing her and taking her ideas, I debuted my 2.0 Live 2D model May 14th, 2022, and on that same day, she decided to post her debut announcement for her 1.0 Live 2D model. Leading up to this time, I didn't know who Cinder was at all. I had no idea she had fire in her ears or she was another hellhound. The creator space is broad, and I still stumble across creators larger than myself that I had not heard of before. I never once stole her ideas. All I ever want is to try to be unique in my own way.
That's rough, man. So bullying, that's another one. Let's look at Silver, and I do want to see the apology as well.
Shielded from
we'll stop it. We'll stop the stream. We've already been going for an hour in terms of online VTuber drama. I'd hate to waste your time even more than that.
You no doubt remember the screenshot in which Redacted was trying to blacklist Val, Cotton, and a 3rd VTuber from ever being able to commission Nano again. Well, we now know that this 3rd VTuber is none other than Silvervale, yet another very big independent VTuber. Many hours after the initial statement from Nano, she quote-tweeted Nano's tweet and said, my statement on Cinder and Redacted, linking yet another Google Doc. It starts off with a section titled Introduction. I shouldn't have to say
the Google Doc wars. I think this is these guys obviously don't want to get like Twitter. Oh well, sorry. Google Docs are a good way to like structure everything. So that's for sure. That's for sure. Hellhound versus Cerberus versus Demon Dog. Who cares? This is Neurotic. Cinder trying to claim Hellhounds like it was like Finders trying to claim Black 3 for real.
Say this, but me putting out this statement is not a call for or an excuse for anyone to turn the situation into a witch hunt. My intention for making a statement is strictly to give myself closure from the events of the past years and clarify how I have been personally affected. I debated if I wanted to even say anything after being asked if I wanted my name in the original document. As manager, I find it impossible that he acted solely on his own intentions without Cinder's knowledge or consent, given the extent to which he has represented her publicly and professionally. The next section is titled Nano and VTuber 1, in which we see many messages that were already included in Nano's document, where Redacted was trying to convince Nano to go exclusive and not work with specific VTubers. As you can see, this is the message where he says you don't work with Bao, Cotton, or Silver at all again, models or art. And then Nanolis says, is there any way to add a little bit more since Silver still asks for art every now and then? To which Redacted says, we could do it like when Silver asks for art, you tell her no, and then tell us to buy another art piece, like so you still get a job. So they wanted to blacklist Silver so hard that if Silver were to ask for any commissions, Redacted and Cinder were willing to pay money to Nano so that she doesn't take the job. We also get more clarity, right? The model that Redacted...
Bobzilla, that's like... That joke right there, I might just take away your moderation rights just for making that good.
was talking about was Silver's model. The DMs between Nano and Cinder also revealed to us much more now that Silver's name has been uncensored. Here we can see Nano saying, just wanted to let you know, I still love working with you in Red, but I'll understand if things don't work out because of Silver. I just love my clients, that's all. That was in February 2025, barely 2 months ago. So this person that Cinder was saying, I just get compared to her a lot even still today, was Silver. And Silver had no idea this was happening behind her back. Silver then continues in her document saying, I am VTuber1 in the screenshots provided by Nano in her document. I've been a friend and client of Nano for years, and seeing how she was manipulated and abused by Cinder and Red makes me livid. She's an absolute sweetheart and just wants her clients to be happy. It breaks my heart to see how she was treated like a tool and a resource to be used for growth rather than a talented living person and gaslit into somehow believing that how she was being treated was okay. I am so proud of Nano for having the courage to come forward to the affected people with all of this and to let everyone know how they were being unknowingly sabotaged. I've spoken to her privately and want to be clear that I have no ill will or hard feelings towards Nano for her involvement.
That's rough, man. I did see some Silver's statement as well. So. Okay, let's look at the apology.
With all these different documents and everyone understanding the real nature.
It's apology time. Let's go.
Who Cinder was, her career was effectively burning to cinders. Sorry about that. People were very patiently waiting for a more complete statement. So after losing over 10,000 followers and waiting more than 24 hours, she finally just published it 6 minutes ago. My apology. Let's see if this can actually save her career. Cinder starts off by saying, there's nothing I can say to make this better, but I will try my best to properly convey my feelings, frustrations, and mistakes. I'd like to explain my point of view and apologize to each party affected. Redacted has been my co-content creator since I began making content, managing all aspects of what I do and being a major part of why I'm here. We have also been in a relationship since the start of my endeavor.
There you go. She finally admits it. And again, this is like, I want to see like.
Forgive me, Kira.
Probably on social. Has she seen a hit to? See if she has a hit to follower track. Oh well, you can see that there. So you can see that there. Minus 29,000. That's insane. Insane stuff.
It's no secret that many VTubers choose to keep their public and personal lives separate, and I'm no different. As of yesterday, he is no longer working with me, and I have not extensively discussed any of this with him. Where our personal situation goes from here will be figured out between us privately. I never intended to mention this publicly, but given that the claims are out there, I want everyone to know I'm taking this seriously. After years of working on everything together, his hyper-business-oriented outlook warps my view of what it is I should be doing, and what should be important to me as I navigate this career.
No, yeah, like she just threw her boyfriend under the bus. That's insane. That's insane stuff right there.
I have a terrible work-life balance as it is, and being around projects and streams all day every day made me lose sight of the point. It took all of this happening for me to realize this behavior isn't normal or healthy, and it's not an outlook I want to have. This doesn't absolve me of the things I've willingly done wrong and went along with, or the way I've treated people who were fully undeserving. Guys, right off the bat, it's not looking good.
So like, she's trying to put all the like the way that she's positioned this apology is putting all of the blame. Like she's trying to put as much blame as possible onto her boyfriend, and it's just, and she expected people to believe this. Like at the start, there's nothing I can say to make this better, but I will try my best to properly convey my feelings, frustrations, and mistakes. Why don't you just convey what actually happened? Why don't you just convey what the reality of the situation? I don't want to hear this garbaggio.
Well, because it doesn't look good
this
for
way
them.
because my boyfriend was actually manipulating me to do certain things, and it wasn't actually my fault. Like, why don't you take accountability for what you've done instead of just putting the blame on other people? It's just like,
well, why would they do that?
Okay, this is not going to change much if the rest of the apology is looking like this. But anyway, she continues, in regards to Nanolist, for the majority of the time working with her...
Please help, I have never made an independent decision that was not responsible for my actions. My boyfriend is a bad influence, please understand.
Red was the one almost solely doing the communication about new plans and negotiations through his private DMs. Nano had a project server we were all a part of where the actual art and models were worked on, but the conversations were focused around the work itself. I was not fully aware of the extent of Red's manipulation over Nano's commission decisions, and I should have been more diligent in my oversight. Every time I had been told that Nano had agreed to work on a new commission with me, it had been willingly and with excitement. From my point of view, it was that she genuinely wanted to be working on these things. I wanted to work with Nano as much as I possibly could, making her art the face of my brand. We had come to the conclusion that it would be in my best interest to talk with Nano about making more time for my project by negotiating with her to cut out other work. This was wrong for us to push onto her, and it was wrong to the other creators who wanted the chance of working with her. There was only one specific creator we were responsible for naming and pressuring Nano into reconsidering project with, not an entire list. Of her own volition, Nano canceled a large portion of her model commissions last September. However, the claim that I was just using her is wrong. Wait, no, this is completely undermining what actually happened. Redacted pressured Nano to not work with Bow, Cotton, Silver, and there was even mention of Geary in there. And let's not forget that more recently, Shy Lily was included in there too. So for Cinder to say Nano canceled these of her own volition is wild, seeing that they manipulated her into doing so. Anyway, she continues, I've always treated Nano with respect, and as my friend, I did give her a lot of work, and we did everything we could to...
I've always treated Nano with respect. Okay, I think that's enough of the apology. Like, let's not waste more of our time than we need to in regards to the situation. So anyway, so that's and as I said, I'm gonna constantly keep bringing this up. This is ultimately why
all in a day's work.
I am not completely shocked. I am not surprised. It's just this is the world without Christ. This is a world, and listen to say people in the people, of course, people, but it's not to the same extent, and it's not to the same level of insanity that you see in the world, right? At least in the church, you find healing, you find purpose, you find meaning, you find that you're
Bilge Waters
that with Christ, all things are possible. Forgiveness is possible.
The chase begins.
Reconciliation is possible.
Captain's orders. Bullet to the face.
Healing is possible. And that's all of it. In Christ we find the solution to all of your problems. The world, what does the world show you? It's like the world shows you that you should be as individualistic as possible. It provides no incentive to you to actually be friendly, to actually work with, to actually be part of a community. It provides no incentive for you to
Yeah, it was either the vulnerables or
in the world. That the world can try as
the
its
single
best
combat.
to emulate what it had.
Maybe single combat was better.
With Christ, right? Because we're all made in the image of God, right? We can still create community. We can still do things naturally. It's still under God's grace, right? Because God puts us as part of our structure, as part of our design. Ultimately, because of sin, because we are outside of Christ, we cannot.
All hands on deck!
So that's ultimately it, right? As I said at the start, as I said it around the middle, and I'll say it again. These are like we're looking at broken people. These are women who are so willing to exploit men. Why are we surprised that they're willing to exploit their colleagues? If with Christ you look at someone as if they are made in the image of God, there is still righteous judgment when need be, right? But after such righteous judgment, there is also the love of Christ that is also imparted. And I think that's ultimately what I will continue to push for, right? Continue to push for Christian VTubing, continue to push for Christianity to spread through VTubing, continue to push for all of these things, because outside of Christ, this ain't gonna be the last time this happens, right? Cinder's not gonna be the last time. I think that it will be, but this is gonna continue happening. Yeah, we're gonna continue. Things will continue to be shown into the light. With that, thank you very much, everyone, for joining me today. That's all for today. I am busy for the rest of the day. I've got so much work to do. And I'm cooking on a few projects as well, so
nothing escapes my
enjoy it. What do we have upcoming
All
this
in a
week?
day's work.
Finance videos coming up this week, and then the week after we've got a controversial video, that's for sure. I've got a video on Once Safe, Always Safe coming out on the 21st of May. And on the 28th, last video of the month, will be why anime has better female protagonists. So it'll be good. It'll be good. They exploited men so precisely, like how well they exploited their own bodies. For real, for real. Yeah, no, the Demon Slayer videos coming out in June. I'm excited for them to come out as well. I want to see. I want to show you how much I also love Demon Slayer. So that's why I've made 4 videos on it, and that's how good it is. It's just like I love it. I love it for that reason. So anyway, all right, take care, everyone. God bless, and may God be with you throughout the rest of the weekend. May He provide you with rest. And may you all go to church. You lot better go to church on Sunday as well. So see ya. Take care.
Hey, what's going on? It's Michael from the Ionia channel. The channel has reviews biblical discernment in all aspects of life. Today we're going to do that one of my favorite ways via a sermon review. And as you've already seen in the thumbnail and title, this is not an exaggeration at all. I've listened to this all the way through. This is one of the only ones that I had time to listen to all the way through, and I thought, oh, wow, this is the worst sermon ever. At least top 3. I only say that because I don't know. I'm sure there's other bad ones.
A crimson
but
hue
I can't think of them.
this bloody dawn.
This is bad. And so there's a lot of different things that I think that we can at least learn from this terrible sermon that will help us as we listen to other sermons to identify if they're terrible as well. So I'm not even gonna I'm not gonna put on a facade. I'm just gonna put all my cards on the table right away. This is bad. This is a terrible sermon. We know that going in. We already know that. But knowing it actually allows us to look for the three things that we look for in every sermon review in a lot clearer way. Now, in case you are new here, before we get too far into it, if I haven't lost you already, each week we look at a variety of sermons from a variety of pastors, sometimes chosen by you, and sometimes the ones I want to look at. This one actually comes from a review of a series that we from a progressive Christian page. We were reacting to it. I thought, let's look at the whole sermon. I listened to the whole sermon. I thought we've got to do a sermon review on this. Now, in these sermon reviews, we look for three specific things. One, do they read the text? Two, do they execute that text in context and culture to bring out the meaning for the modern believer? And three, do they preach the gospel of Jesus Christ? So every single sermon, no matter what it is, whether it's at a conference, whether it's at a church, it doesn't matter. We're going to apply that, those three standards. Because I think anytime you open the Word of God, those three standards should at least be met, even if it's not a sermon, quote unquote. Those are the three things. Now, this is a sermon driven by a pastor, Coach, maybe, I don't know. He's got a PhD, which we'll discuss that here in a little bit. The sermon is called Don't Die Like Wheezy, Let's Talk About Sex. So, just so you know, going in, kind of have that. There's some things that we're going to be talking about during this one. So just, you know, I know some of you guys listen to this through your car, with your children. Just heads up on that. So, anyway, that is what we're going to be looking at today. Let's hop over to the review screen. If you want to watch this sermon without my commentary, link as always will be in the description below. The sermon itself starts at 50 minutes in. The video itself is 1 hour and 44 minutes long. The sermon starts at 50 minutes in. There's not a whole lot I really want to say about this.
We shall begin.
Because we're going to be discussing it as we go through it. So with that being said, let's go ahead and hop in and look for the things we look for every single week.
If you have your Bibles, I want to invite you to turn with me to Matthew chapter 5, verse 32. And I also want to live.
Now, if you're not viewing this and you're listening to this, there are two scriptures that he's going to go to. And I do appreciate him at least noting this. Matthew chapter 5, verse 32 is going to be one of them. And the second one is going to be 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 18. And so one of the things I do at least appreciate about whether this is the worst sermon ever or not, is that at least this pastor is giving us these verses from the get-go, so we at least know where we're gonna be. And that I'm just pulling this up. One thing I would note, and this is where I think this is really important, is that I've mentioned before the Step Bible app. You can get it on your phone, you can get it on your desktop. It is going to be an incredibly valuable resource for us today as it pertains to the subject that he's going to be talking about. So just heads up on that. You don't have to have it. It will be helpful though.
Live 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 18. If you're visiting with us for the first time, we have been in an extended series of sermons on first Sundays of the month this year. The sermon series is entitled Practicing Safe Text. We are going to the Word of God to try to clarify
Remember, we're the ones who make
that
progress
have been distorted or misunderstood by the church. And as a result, the church has transmitted spiritually transmitted infections.
Now, I just gotta say, when I started listening to this the first time, that sounds like an amazing premise. That's a good premise. Like, let's work through text and see if we have what we have been taught and if it actually lines up with the scripture. That is an amazingly good premise.
Control the mages.
But keep that, as we're going to see, can go awry very quickly.
Intolerance, injustice, condemnation. So today's installment of this sermon series continues that same theme. And so in Matthew chapter 5, the word of the Lord reads as follows. This is Jesus in his first sermon
Bring death.
Tell your neighbor, this is his first sermon now. His first sermon, the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus in Matthew chapter 5, verse 32 says, "But I say to you that whoever shall put away his wife," this is the King James translation, because we shared last month that the practice of divorce in antiquity is different than what's labeled divorce today. Y'all got that?
Now, real quick, he's gonna reference this. Apparently, the last time they did a sermon in the sermon series, they did divorce. He's gonna mention it a few different times. I did not listen to that one. I cannot imagine it's good based on this one, though.
That in antiquity, the practice that is labeled divorce was really the practice of throwing out your wife. Just discarding her, throwing her, locking the door. That's not what we do today. Okay? And so Jesus says in the King James translation that whoever shall put away his wife, they're trying to give voice to that ancient practice, except for the cause of fornication, causes her to commit adultery. And whoever shall marry her that is divorced or put out or thrown out commits adultery as well. Is that in your Bible? Then in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 18, Paul says this, "Flee fornication. Every sin that a man doeth is without the body. But he that committeth fornication sins against his own body." Right?
Now, one of the first things that we're gonna point out, I'm just saying this because this is going to be like a major point for him.
Off we go.
Depending on what translation you have, whether it be the King James, we'll say fornication, ESV, which we'll see here in a minute, says sexual morality. That's gonna matter based upon what his point will be here coming up, and that's important. This is why I think, especially as pastors, we're preparing sermons. What we want to do is look at a variety of different translations in regards to how different translations work, and then as well to go back and look at the original word. That is going to be more apparent in this sermon than any other sermon we've ever looked at, and it's going to actually demonstrate why we, as really just believers in general, lay people and pastors alike, should have at least some tools. This is why I mentioned the Step Bible app. Just some tools by way to look this up and clarify. Because what's going to happen is, and this is, I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but this is a great sort of
Petricide, protect me.
I think place to put this in the sermon. What we're going to see is that he is going to use a number of times language throughout this sermon that you're going to maybe feel like, oh, I'm too stupid. Like, I don't know. Where do I even clarify or find out what he's talking about? How do I verify what he's saying is true? And I think this is where I think it's very important for believers to have the tools in their hands to do that. So I don't mean to keep interrupting, but this is very important because this is the main point.
Control the mage.
To control their magic. The word fornication means the following. Fornication, if you look in any dictionary, is going to be defined as sexual intercourse between people who are not married. Are y'all in here today? All right, we on the same foundation. We speak in the same language in lingo, right? Fornication is sexual intercourse between people who are not married. And Paul says, flee fornication.
Guys, I don't know why. I didn't notice this the first time I listened to it, but the music in the background is still going. It's sort of
control their magic. So today, I want to talk about sex. Is that all right? Let's talk about sex. as I was sitting over there, up to commit, worshipers to enter. Literally, as I was sitting over there, the Lord gave me another title for this sermon. And that title is, Don't Listen and Die Like You. Do me a favor, look at your neighbor, smile at him, say, neighbor, oh neighbor, discipline, whatever you do, don't die like Wheezy. Come on, put your hands together and give the Lord praise.
Yep, that's my turn.
My introduction to the subject of sex began not in the educational confines of a school classroom or the sacred space of the church or in the supportive setting of my family. Instead, I was first introduced to the subject of sex on the playground and in the locker room as a young boy. I was around the age of 10, and one day my football coach asked me to take the team's equipment to the storage room after football practice. It was a difficult task given how much equipment we had and how heavy it was, but I labored to do it anyway. And as I was doing so, two older teenagers walked by me and they saw me struggling. And rather than offering their assistance, they offered jokes and humiliation instead. One of them said, "Hey, little N-word.
History
Hey, little ninja, y'all again." He said, "Hey, little N-word, you would be struggling if you got some. And it would put some hair on your chest and make you stronger."
Yep.
The other teenager chimed in and said, "Yeah, you can tell he ain't had none. That's why he got them bumps on his forehead." They then ran off laughing. I don't know who those boys were, but they were my first teachers on sex. And they taught me that if you do it, it gives you muscles, puts hair on your chest, and eliminates acne. And I left that moment using my newfound knowledge about sex, trying to protect those around me who were sexually active based upon their build, how much hair they had, and whether they had acne.
soldier is worth tenfold.
I can laugh about it now, but back then, comments from kids in the locker room and barbershops and in the school cafeteria was really where I received my foundational knowledge about sex.
need that.
And the sad part is, I'm not alone. Many of you likewise learned a variety of myths and falsehoods and fictions about sex from the streets. Come on, y'all talk to me here today. From the hair salons, from your cousins, and from other kids in the neighborhood as well. And the real tragedy is that in all of the misinformation that we learned about sex, that the church also played a major role in furthering a lot of confusion and a lot of misunderstanding. Of the 954 Sundays that I went to church from the time that I was born until the time that I went to college at the age of 18, I never heard a sermon about sex. And I only heard about sex one time mentioned in church. And it wasn't in a church sermon. It wasn't in a church service. It was in Sunday school when I was 11. The lesson that day was from 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 18. And there was this big, unfamiliar word that no one in the classroom knew. It was the word fornication.
Now, again, the 2 points that he's making here that I think are really important. The first is that he's right. Your view on everything, not just this, but especially this, since it's the topic, is informed by the people around you and what you hear. So if you see something on television, if you hear people talking, if you have interactions like he had, if anybody talks about it in church, right? These are the things that do inform. This is why I think it's really important to, well, if we're talking about church specifically, I think this is why it's important to actually like preach through the scriptures. Because when you do, you're going to get to passages like what we're looking at in Matthew 5 or like what we're looking at in 1 Corinthians chapter 6. Like if you're doing that and you're preaching through them, you're going to come across them and then you're going to have to define them. Now, I would say, and this is just for me being in church for a very long time, I don't think me and this pastor are probably that far off in age. Like, there's probably a lot of times that sermons were preached that I just wasn't paying attention. And so maybe the subject was covered and I was off somewhere else in my head. That being said, I do think that that's important. Now, secondly, this is, again, remember, this isn't just him talking. This is a very well-structured sermon in regards to he's still playing off of the idea of the word fornication being mentioned in these texts.
The verse said, flee fornication, and no one in my class, in my 11th grade class, knew what fornication was. So when we asked our Sunday school teacher, and I will not mention her name, she might be listening today. My Sunday school teacher said this. She said, fornication is premarital sex. Fornication is sex outside of marriage, and she said that if you do it, it's a sin, it's wrong, and if you want to go to heaven, do not have sex. That is the only time that I ever heard the word sex mentioned in church out of the 954 Sundays that I went to church, from the time that I was born until the time I went to college. And in some shape, size, or form, that's the message that many of us received as well. The specific details of your story may be different from mine, but for the most part, the takeaway that we all received was the same, that sex outside of marriage is sinful, unholy, and not pleasing to God. And depending upon which family system you came up in, or what neighborhood you came up in, or who your uncles or your cousins were, sex was something you did not talk about. It was shrouded in taboo, secrecy, and hiding. Layered on top of that were conflicting messages that boys got compared to girls. Come on, y'all, talk to me here today. Young boys received messages that encouraged us to do it, but girls were guilted and shamed and called names if they did.
So what he's doing, he's actually painting a fairly accurate picture for most people, being that if you were in church, if you did hear about sex, it was seen as something you don't do outside of marriage and reserved for marriage only, which is, surprise, surprise, is correct.
No, that's not exactly fair.
Secondly, he's saying that anything outside of the church, if you heard about it, it was conflicting messages between boys and girls and what people, which by and large is pretty much accurate as well. I don't know of any anybody that would necessarily.
Why can't I get the
so what he's setting forth here is actually
the little buddy's power?
Experiential data, but it's
So I don't have to play units.
that actually lines up with
What's
what
gonna
most
happen?
people probably did here. Now, again, I don't want to overstate the point here. When I say this is the worst sermon ever, I mean it, but it's not like the worst sermon out of the gate where you're like, oh, this is all terrible. The worst sermons you hear will be very well structured. They will be very convincing. And what he's doing here is he's setting up this is what you heard from the church, this is what you saw outside, and then he's going to then, for lack of a better word, sort of attack those critiques and statements.
I guess you can win them all.
Okay, sorry. Here we go.
Y'all not in here today. There are very few Christians, especially black Christians, who were introduced to the subject of sex in ways that were positive, open, honest, loving, accepting, and celebrated. That experience, I believe, is why there is so much sexual ignorance, dysfunction.
Really quick, very interesting note, just from, if you are a visual viewer, you'll see this. I think it's just, again, from a pastoral side, interesting note. If you watch his eyes, he will occasionally almost look into what looks like straight back. I'm almost positive, and this is like a good thing, I'm almost positive he probably has a television or a monitor out right in front of him that is sort of feeding him his notes. That would be my guess, because there's nothing on stage at all that has any of this. He does have like a PowerPoint clicker in his hand, and so my guess is he probably is controlling a monitor out above the audience, that he can read his notes off of via that clicker, so he doesn't have to have anything on the podium with him, and yet he's able to keep his flow of thought going. But it seems to be that's what's happening, which I've never seen done before. It is actually a fairly good and innovative idea. It frees up any distraction that's in front of you. You're not looking down, you're always looking out. And the only indication that there is something like off, I guess, quote unquote, as far as you not looking at the audience, is when you occasionally look up to recenter your thoughts on the notes that you just clicked over to see. So that's actually, just as a completely separate from the sermon review part of it, a fairly good idea that might be worth trying.
Trauma, guilt, and shame in our community, in the church, and in society, because we don't talk about it. It turns out, sir, that the culprit for this perspective that sex is unholy before marriage, that sex is unholy and sinful, all centers around the church's interpretation of one Greek word. That might be hard to believe. You might think that there ought to be a huge body of biblical material about this subject, but there's not. The entire architecture of the church's teaching about sex and human sexuality hinges upon a misreading of just one word.
Now this is where the whole thing takes a left turn real fast. So his premise, I mean, understand what his premise is. This is where, if you're taking notes, by the way, I didn't mention it, free sermon review guide for your use, you can download down below. But this is where it takes like just a drastic whiplash left turn. Is that his premise is that there is only one verse that has determined all of the church's teaching on the subject of this, and it's a misinterpretation of it. Now this is quite a reach for a couple of reasons. One, he's stating something that says that Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 6 this is the only place this is ever said. And it's because Paul says it here that the church has then misrepresented and misinterpreted it, and it has influenced thought on the subject of fornication all throughout church history. It's been misinterpreted, and the implication therefore is today he's going to set right millennia of incorrect teaching on fornication, right? I mean, do you see, like, that's his premise. It's his stated premise. The church has built their entire teaching on fornication on this one verse. It's wrong, and he's going to teach it right now, which is laughable. When I first heard it, I laughed out loud in my
Evening, officer.
because I was just like, are you? Wow, that is quite a reach, my friend. But let's try to talk through this.
Neighbor, wake up. You do not want to miss this.
Let's get
And
to
this
work.
sermon series is designed to clarify what has been distorted and misunderstood by the church for millennia, so that this sermon series is designed to help believers live lives that are free from dogma and untruths, so that Christians can be equipped with the resources that they need to navigate the real life decisions that they have to face in life in a healthy, moral, and a responsible way, and so that they don't have to live their lives in spiritual bondage. I want to be clear about something. I am acutely aware that today's message is one that you have never heard preached in the church.
It's probably a good reason for that. Anytime you hear, just as a side note, not just here, but this is a great example of it. Anytime you hear something preached for the first time in a church, it's probably because it's wrong. Right? If millennia of church teaching has said this thing here, and then you come along and say something completely different or opposed to it, I'd say the evidence is stacked against you that you're right. But
I guess you can win them all.
I think this is an amazing opportunity to teach not only church history, but interpretation via what we're about to see.
I'm acutely aware that this topic for many is a taboo topic, and talking about it in church makes some of us
Who says I
uncomfortable.
don't?
I'm also acutely aware that many people have traumatic experiences with sex. They were abused or molested, and so these can be uncomfortable topics, and I'm sensitive to that as well. But I want you to know that I am not teaching on this to be provocative. This is not about sensationalism. This is not because I want to go viral on social media or because I want clicks or more followers or views online. I do this because the church's mishandling of this subject has had considerable consequences on our culture and on our society. It has adversely impacted how people see themselves and see their bodies, and it has had a huge impact on intimate relationships, and it's affected how parents treat their children when those children become active. And so this teaching today is necessary, not because I want to be known for saying something that is novel, but because I believe that lives are at stake. And I believe that people's ability to experience the life that Jesus wants us to have and to have it more abundantly is on the line. I am doing this because the church ought to be one of the first places.
One thing too, I think, is really important here with the use of this verse. We talked about this before. I think the example that always comes to mind whenever verse twisting happens is when Satan comes to Jesus in the desert and quotes to him a psalm, and Jesus immediately comes back at him with scripture in context to combat Satan's scripture out of context. And so what we have here is essentially the same, if I may so be so bold to say that. So, pastor, I don't really understand. I think it's coach. His premise is he's about to teach you the correct view of fornication, because when you understand it, you will have life and life more abundantly as Jesus meant for you to have it. Now, just let's file that away in the back of our brains for a minute, because obviously we want to get all the way to the end of the sermon. But hopefully I'll remember to come back to that, because by the time we get to the end of this sermon,
I'm going to sign off for today.
To make the point is sort of laughable.
We'll finish the Runeterra and the Phil character later. I think the Phil character, I have a lot of options for that. That'll be fun.
Ought to be one of the first places where people are able to talk about this God-given desire in a space that is safe, supportive, and free from shame, guilt, and condemnation. I lost some of y'all already. See,